But if you have any amount of investments or you own real estate, you are doing better. If you want something, it's just like there's a path to get there. You just got to find that path. Like if certain things happen and you create that.
Like a part of me had to die and that ego had to go away in order to allow myself to do this other thing.
I believe you create your own reality.
Well, it's either now or never.
This is the Better Life Podcast with Brandon Turner and
Cam Cathcart.
Cam Cathcart. I am super pumped about today's show.
Dude, it's amazing.
Dude,
it's a blast.
Graham Stephan, Andrei Jikh are two of the biggest personal finance experts, you could call it, on YouTube in the world. And they would not say they're experts, but because they're humble, but I'm going to call them experts anyway. We had an amazing conversation with them today.
Yes.
About everything from the economy collapsing or not. Bitcoin. We talked about the real estate market, their kind of investment philosophies, where they put their money.
Magic tricks,
and being frugal, and a lot more.
Yes.
So I'm super pumped for this episode. But before we bring them in, let's get a quick word from today's show sponsor. This week, one of our show sponsors, we have one later in the episode, but is simply the Better Life Tribe. The Better Life Tribe is a real estate investing mastermind that I run. 100% of profits go directly to charity, but we hold you accountable to habits and goals. It is the coolest thing. We've got over 1,300 members, probably more when this episode airs. And I would love to have you look into it. So if you are an active real estate investor or you are trying to be a real estate investor, go to abetterlife.com and check out what we're doing. We're going to help you buy more real estate, scale your empire, slow down, build a better life together. So check it out, abetterlife.com. With that said, let's get into today's show. All right, I think that's all we got. So
let's go.
Let's get to it.
It's amazing.
Graham, Andrei, welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
This was so cool to be able to pull this off kind of last minute, because I know you guys were here in Maui hanging out, and I'm like, we should do a show and talk about smart things and bring Cam in and confuse him.
Yes.
It's gonna be great.
I can't do a trip without working. So like this, I was looking forward to. Yeah, exactly.
It is.
Yeah. All right. Well, so first of all, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you just got married.
Yeah, it did.
Everything went well, wedding-wise?
Amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I wish I could have been there, but
I wish you could have been there
I
too.
know Rosie had her sports camp. They do a thing out here called sports camp every year. Have you heard of this?
No.
Sports camp is this big thing. 1,000 kids on the island go. One of the churches puts it on, and all 1,000 kids come, and they bring in professional athletes and sports, like coaches and stuff, and they just teach kids for a solid week sports. It's the coolest thing. And so my daughter had two of the cheerleaders from the 49ers come and lead for a whole week, teaching her cheerleader moves and stuff like that. And then they do a big presentation on Friday and Saturday. So
that's really
cool.
That's cool. Is it free?
Yeah. So
I guess so. Yeah, we didn't have thousands of people. Jeez.
Yeah. But if you ever redo it, just for me, I'll be there at the wedding.
Sure.
So if you want to mock wedding. All right, man. So let's go. I want to start actually with Andrei here. Because I've interviewed you before, and I want to get your story as well. But I know almost nothing about Andrei, except for you have a huge.
Because I just showed up randomly.
Exactly.
I'm sorry for crashing the podcast.
I heard you were here on Island, so I told Grandma, it would be cool to do a show.
Yeah.
If you could make it. I know you have a massive audience, and you teach a lot of people about finance. You both live near each other, both teach people about finance. You're
when I was in LA, we would call Andrei the Vegas Graham.
Oh, funny. That's awesome.
And now we're both the Vegas Graham.
So I know you both as massive YouTube, YouTubers, YouTube stars, celebrities, however you want to call it, influencers.
Yeah,
right. Massive. I know you are finance wizards, we'll call that. I know you do some magic stuff, Andrei.
Yeah.
And I know, Graham, you just got married, but take us back before all that. I want to go way back before all that. Do you do magic too? No magic for Graham.
I think it's so cool.
It is so cool.
Andrei always has a deck of cards on him. I bet
Not
you don't
today.
now.
No,
Yeah.
not today.
But always a deck of cards. He's just playing with the cards and just making them disappear.
Text my wife to bring my kids over.
I feel so uncomfortable calling myself a finance guy or a magic guy, because I've had 3 different careers in my life at this point.
Let's go to that. What did you do before all this? Take us back. Who was Andrei Jikh?
So I'm a circus kid originally. I came from Russia, born of circus parents.
Really?
So at the age of 9, my dad actually got invited by Cirque du Soleil to come to the U.S. and Las Vegas to come and perform. And so we'd tour with him to all these different countries, like Germany, Switzerland, Holland, Belgium, all these different places. And I hated doing gymnastics. But that's when you were born in the USSR, which is when I was born in 1989, you were told what you were going to do for the rest of you didn't get to pick.
Yeah.
And I remember coming to Vegas And then seeing like in third grade, because I got held back 2 years because I didn't know how to speak any English. And I was like, whoa, what does your dad do? Like, is he like a clown? Is he like, what kind of performer is he? I had no idea that there was a world outside of the circus.
Yeah.
Because that's all I knew.
What did he do? I mean, what was his thing?
So he did a high bar
Okay.
and Chinese poles.
Really?
Yeah, so he did some crazy stuff. And I was doing the same stuff, but like I hated doing it. But when I was, I want to say like 10 or 11 years old, my dad used to take me to these magic shops. They're called Houdinis. And like every casino had one. And then he'd buy me a magic trick, and then I would just practice and do it. And I fell in love with magic. So my first career basically was working for a startup company. It's called Theory 11. And what we did was we would have artists fly from all over the world who invented their own original tricks. We'd film them, put them on a DVD back when those were a thing. And then we just basically sell that stuff. And then the artist would get a 25% royalty. We'd get a royalty. Then we'd sell playing cards. So we did all kinds of different stuff. And then we eventually started consulting on movies like Now You See Me, did commercials, worked with Steve Harvey. I've been on National Geographic. I've done crazy stuff with cardistry, with magic. But there was always like a ceiling to it, like income-wise.
Yeah.
I was kind of trapped because the other thing I did was cinematography. Like I would, if you guys remember those like skateboarding videos with the fisheye lenses.
Yeah.
And so there was another movement called cardistry and magic. And we would film these videos in these like crazy styles. And so my cinematography leveled up, then my magic leveled up. And I had both of these two things that I was super passionate about. But at the same time, my parents were immigrants and they knew nothing about money. So when they came to the US, they maxed out their credit cards. They took on a whole bunch of debt. And because we lived in Vegas, they started to gamble. And my parents would just lose entire paychecks away. Like I remember they were like, oh, what are we gonna do this month? Like we have to borrow money. And I was so stressed out being like this 10-year-old kid, like, oh, how are we gonna pay for this? So money was always on my mind. I was like, I never wanna be in this position when I grow up. So I've always had this thing in the back of my mind about finance, money, investing. So at the same time as studying magic and cardistry, I would always ask questions, and all the artists I would work with, like, what do you do for money? Like, do you invest it? How much do you make? Just purely out of curiosity. And what I found out is all these performers, they had no clue about money. They all lived paycheck to paycheck. And that was normal. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just they didn't know any other way to live. And so from that point on, after 10 years of working with this company, I quit. In 2017, I was depressed, didn't do anything with my life. I'm like, what am I gonna do now? I have all these random skills. I love cinematography, I love cardistry, I love finance and investing. And at this point, I grew a portfolio of roughly like $200,000 off of $50K a year. So I would save like 50% of my income, invest it into dividend stocks, and sort of taught myself how to do this stuff. And just took a chance. I quit my job, and for 2 years, I just didn't do anything. I was probably making less than 10K a year, but I was Airbnb-ing my house, so I just had like no expenses. And I was like, well, it's either now or never. I'm either gonna try something or just move in back with my parents at like the age of 30 and be a loser, but that's okay. If that's the worst thing that can happen to me, fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, 2019, January, I posted my first video. And I basically combined all these random skills that I would never get hired for.
Yeah.
Magic, cardistry, cinematography, storytelling, finance. And my MO was always like, I don't know what I'm doing with investing. I'm not any better than anybody. I have no insight into the market. This is what I'm doing. This is how much I'm making. And here's what I'm learning. And that was my story. And from then on, it was just luck.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How many subscribers do you have?
I think like 2.3 million at this point.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I totally lucked out.
One of those like luck is what preparation meets opportunity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, I mean, I can see like you put in, you have a good, like, I don't call it a shtick, but maybe that's what it is. Like, it's a thing. It's tangible. It's almost like what the beard is for me. It's like, oh yeah, that's the guy with the beard.
Right.
That's the guy with the magic.
Yes.
Right?
It's so interesting because like combining two unlike things, it just works somehow. Like magic and finance, like what?
Yeah. Visually appealing. Like I like when you do the tricks.
Yeah. There's a hook
Yeah,
I
to
agree,
it.
100%.
There's a hook
Keeps
because
you
it's like
watching.
it
Because you're
does.
like fiddling with
Yeah.
cards. And you
Yeah.
want to see what
It's
happens
like a-
to it, like a resolution.
There's a new trend of like the TikTok, Instagram videos where there's like people, even Hormozy's been doing it lately, like building blocks on a table as
The
you're
Subway
talking.
Yeah.
surfers.
Yeah. It's
Because
like-
attention spans are so bad.
Yeah.
You need like something
Yeah.
going on below
Yep.
you.
Yeah, I've seen like the video games getting played below.
Yeah.
While
Oh,
somebody's
that-
talking above.
I'm
It's annoying,
surprised
but
you don't
it
have a
works.
TV screen like over there. It's a random Subway server.
Yeah. Oh.
Or just cooking. Cooking,
Yeah.
I feel like, is the one that keeps me hooked.
Really?
They're cooking, but they're teaching something.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
completely not the cooking, but it's just
Yeah, they're just
you're-
doing
you're
something with
focused
their
on it,
hands.
yeah.
Yeah, it's smart. I think you probably rode that wave well. Like,
I
got it
did,
early
yeah.
and
And the pandemic was such a good
Yeah. It was
thing
right
that happened
place,
to
right
social
time.
media people because everyone was locked up in their houses, nothing to do,
Yeah.
just watching social media.
All right, before we get Graham's story,
Yeah.
last question for you. Like, what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite trick? I think that you just
Favorite
like
trick? I
that-
do.
that you
I don't
like to
I
perform.
I can't show it because I don't have
Yeah,
cards
yeah,
on me.
it's all right.
If I do, you wouldn't know it though. I have to show it to
Is it
you.
like what is it, like a hidden card thing or like what?
It's
how's it
basically
work?
where you tear off a corner off a card and then it disappears and reappears like in another room somewhere else. Yeah.
Dang, that
I'll
gets
tell you
cards.
my favorite trick that Andre does. He'll make a card appear from different places, and then you're like, "Let me watch that again,"
Yeah.
and he'll do it again slower, and he'll make it appear somewhere else.
So you
And he could keep doing this indefinitely. There's
Oh,
a
that's
point
cool.
at Jen's thing that you made this appear like 6 different times.
Yeah.
And I was blown away each and every time.
And then one ended up in your pocket.
Yes.
you could-
Yeah.
So do you go like plant that there, like over to his house and plant it in his pocket beforehand, and just have to guess what jeans he's wearing, or
No, this was like this was this was on the fly.
because I had a buddy who did a trick and
Yeah.
he made it appear like in the gas tank in the car, and I'm like, you planted that there 100% beforehand, and so.
He sold his soul, man. That's
Yeah,
what he got.
it's either that or he planted it. One of the two. I don't know which one.
There's a great quote from I think it's David Blaine who said, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but he basically says magic is nothing but practicing the same trick 10,000 times. Like,
Yeah.
is there a lot of validity in that? It's mostly just a tremendous amount of practice.
Yeah, there is, but I think that the better way that I've used magic to help with video creation is there's this quote that I really like that goes like there are 2 kinds of people. There's people that use deception to conceal the truth about the world, and there are those that use deception to reveal the truth about the world. And so I take that concept of deception, magic, entertainment, and I might show you a magic trick where I'm like, hey, take a look at this. I take $1 and I multiply it into hundreds. And I'm like, that's compound interest. Obviously, that's complete BS. Like, that is not compound interest. That's not at all how it works. I'm using deception, a lie, to tell you something that is true about the world. That's a bigger part of the world. And that's how I've used this in entertainment and the finance world. And I think it really, really helps because, it's a super visual and it's a cool story.
That's fascinating.
That's cool. All right, Graham.
Yeah.
What's your story?
Gosh,
Take us back.
not as cool as yours.
Jeez.
Oh my
That
gosh!
doesn't
You should
have
have
to
asked
be.
me first. Because now this is going to be so awful compared to your story.
Take it away, L.A. Graham.
Yeah.
Gosh, what's my story? I guess I've always just been interested in money. I guess ever since I was a kid, I'd collect quarters, rare coins. My grandpa was into that, so I'd like sort through, my parents' change to find like a 1909 SVDP penny. I never found it, but like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was really interested in aquariums for whatever reason. When I was like 10 years old, I'd go to the fish store and just like love saltwater fish. So my dad and grandma teamed up to get me a saltwater aquarium. Got obsessed with that. Went on reef aquarium forums when I was like 11 years old. And I noticed that in Southern California, they would do these things called like frag swaps, where they'd go and like trade pieces of coral with each other. I showed up to one of these frag swaps being like, 11 years old, really into it. And I met someone who owned a wholesale company for fish and coral, and they would sell online. And I was so intrigued over like just being around fish and coral that he invited me over to see the warehouse. I was just like, to see a whole like 40,000 square feet of fish and coral was just like mind blowing to me as a kid. I was so into it that he asked my parents and me if I would love to come and like help out after school. And I said yes. And so as soon as I started working, I think it was every Tuesday and Thursday from like 3:30 p.m. to like 7. And I'd go and like make boxes for them. I'd help pack orders. I'd help get together orders. Like there would be rows of coral. And you would have to go and have a sheet and say, okay, we need 3 of these, 4 of these snails, 1 of these fish. And I'd like go around the warehouse like collecting it. for these orders. I love doing that. And so as soon as I started working, my school just started to slip because I thought, why would I want to be in school when I could just go and work? And at the time, I wasn't getting paid. I was getting paid in fish and coral. So I could, work the week. And he said, okay, you could pick out a fish that's worth like $50 or you get $50 of store credit or whatever. So I just spend that instead. And then I think when I was like 15, I started making money doing that. And when I got a driver's license, I'd start skipping school to be able to go and work. And so that's when my grades really suffered because I thought, why am I going to pay attention in school when I could go and make money and do something I'm really into versus learn geometry? Like I'm never going to use geometry, but I could make $100 today. So I'd rather work and make $100. So I continued that. They ended up selling the business. The new owner completely drove it into the ground. It was awful. So I ended up leaving there around that time that it really started to go downhill. Didn't have any backup plan. I thought I wanted to be maybe like an investment banker or something, but my grades were terrible. So I didn't go to college. So I thought I'm going to get my real estate license and at least do something on my own. And I got my real estate license, would go to open houses every single Sunday, just talking to different agents, asking them how to get clients, what to do in the business. And then from there, I ended up, I think after like a few months of just every single Sunday going to open houses, I met an agent who really took me under his wing and said, well, if you want to work with me, I'll kind of teach you the ropes, and any deals that you close, we could split it 50-50. And he just gave me his open house book. Like that was one of the first days. It was just like, here's 20 people that signed in the open house. Call each and every one of them, follow up over email, see what they're looking for, get them as clients. And I loved it. And so that's what I did. And I saved as much as I could. It took me, I think, 9 months to sell my first house, but it was $3.6 million in Beverly Hills from a couple that came in during an open house. It was 9 months of holding open houses, not a single bite, and then one deal. They ended up, getting a house shortly afterwards.
Do you have any suggestions for people who want? Because not that we have a ton of real estate agents listening to the show, but there are definitely some. Yeah. When you're young and trying to be taken seriously, maybe not even a real estate agent question. It's just like when you're young and trying to be taken seriously. What advice do you have?
Everyone took me seriously. I don't know. I never had that issue. I think it was easier for me because it seemed like people really wanted to give you a chance to go easy on you. Like if I was some 40-year-old dude, like I hate to say it, but a lot of them would be dismissive. But when you're a kid, like it was very obvious that I was young. A lot of people would ask, like, how long you been doing this for? And I'd be, 6 months. But they loved the enthusiasm.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I was willing to do anything. I'd show any deal. And it really helped in the beginning because I take on the shit deals, like the really bad ones. The deals that other agents would lose money on, I would do because for me, like earning a $500 commission on a lease listing, I was so happy for that because that to me may as well have been like 20 grand. So I would take those deals, and it really helped build up a clientele like very quickly. And some of those deals would end up referring me to more clients, and that eventually led to meeting buyers through doing that. A lot of those lease listings, because this was 2008 when I started doing leases, very few people were buying because the market kept going down. And so the consensus was I'm going to rent and then I'm going to pick something up. So a lot of those early renters that were renting at like $3,000 to $5,000 a month came back to me in like 2011, 2012, and say, hey, we're ready to buy now. And so I'd help them buy a house. And then I would later help them sell that house to buy something else. And then a lot of those people too, I'd get renewal commissions. Like the way we would structure our commission agreements for the leases is that we'd get paid on renewal. So if they stayed longer, I would get residual checks from that. So there are plenty of leases I do, like make the $500 up front, but like I'd make 500 the next year and 500 the next year. And so a lot of that just really began to add up, but I saved practically as much as I could. 2011, I started buying real estate because I noticed there's a client that I had that started buying all these properties in Compton and San Bernardino. And he would have me do these deals because, again, no other agent wanted to do a short sale in Compton for like $200,000. But I would be there and I'd be the one to get the lockbox and help him. And I noticed like I would start talking to him because he was like this wealthy doctor. Like, why are you buying this one? How does this make money? How are you fixing it up? But he'd buy these places that were like really, really, really dilapidated. And he'd go through and fix them up. And he'd have me there to meet the contractor because he wasn't like, he'd deal with these people over the phone, but he'd have me like meet them at the property. So I get to meet the contractor and just ask questions. get like read the bids of like how much is that going to cost. So I know all these things, but San Bernardino was one of the areas that they were buying in, and he'd buy these places for like $100,000, $120,000 that used to sell for like 450 or 500 grand, and the rents were through the roof. Like I remember looking at these deals thinking if it didn't make 18% cash on cash, it was a bad deal. Like 18%. So it'd pay for itself in 6 years, which is crazy. And he was buying these deals. And so after a few years of just saving, 4 years, I had enough money to be able to buy the first property in San Bernardino County. And so I did that. And I think that made like 16 to 18% cash on cash.
Those are the good
I
days.
believe, yeah. That first house I bought for $59,000. And she, the seller was upside down on the loan because she refinanced at a $380,000 purchase price in 2005. And so she was like way upside down on this loan. And so at that point, all they need to do is stop making the payments, give it back to the bank. The bank would short sell this house. And you just pick it up, basically. So that's what I did. I started investing that money. And that's when I really got into investments. I got into the whole financial independence community on Reddit. I think around that time, which is like 2010 on Reddit. I just got really into finance. Like it was just really what I was like interested in for whatever reason was like the whole concept of retiring early. And more specifically was using my rental income to pay for all of my lifestyle so that everything I made as an agent would be profit. So I got it down in the beginning where it's like I was living in a duplex, renting out the other half. And I think my expenses at the time were like $1,500 to $1,800 a month all in, which the rents like basically absorbed. So I could live for free in a 1-bedroom duplex in Los Angeles, spending no money. And that was my whole thing for years was just like, how could I just not spend any money? And that's where, cheap coffee came in. I'd go out to lunch with the office of the Oppenheim group. If they had food that was like they were not going to eat, I'd get it to go because otherwise it's going to be thrown away. I'd eat that throughout the week. Like I really got my expenses down to like nothing.
It's amazing.
So everything was kind of subsidized.
I mentioned with Andre, like magic is kind of his shtick. When I was thinking about what's Graham's shtick, I would say
really
it's cheap stuff. Like I think people know you as that.
Yeah.
And that's not just same with you. That's actually who you are.
Right.
And
We
that's
saw
actually
today.
you were
I got
at a
this.
timeshare.
Yeah.
You were at a
it was a
timeshare
timeshare,
presentation earlier today.
Yeah, it's funny. I was telling Macy too because I was having the issue of getting coffee at the hotel.
Yeah.
I'm like, I found a place I could just fill up at coffees in the timeshare presentation office. It's open from 8 to 6, and you could just fill up, and they have Starbucks coffee there for free. And so in my mind, I'm like, I could just walk downstairs, fill up the whole thing of coffee, and be done. And I brought it here. Really.
What was your first big purchase that you made?
It was a dumb. It wasn't a dumb purchase. It was I bought a Lotus Elise with my first commission. So that $3.5 million house that I sold, I practically spent all of it, like after taxes and broker splits and everything, like 40 something grand. I spent $30,000 buying a Lotus Elise, $3,000 in sales tax, insurance, and stuff like that. It all went towards the car because I thought like that was my dream car at the time, and I really got good use out of it. Like I never thought of it as a business tool or expense. I just wanted the car, but it helped me get clients. I went to car meets every single week. I'd meet really great people through those car meets. I'd go on drives every Sunday. Like it was a tool I never thought of it as a tool, but I just naturally used it as a tool to meet some really cool people.
I have a buddy who's a luxury real estate agent. And he bought a $35,000 Rolex, and he swears that thing is paid for itself 10 times over.
It depends what you're doing. If you're doing it to flaunt it, no. But if you use it in the right ways in certain categories, it makes sense. Like a car could be a great one. A watch could be a really good one.
I have a friend who says that about his private jet. He's like, my private jet has made me far more than it ever cost him because he's always like, hey, let me just go pick you up on my jet. And like for networking, you can pretty much get almost anybody to come hang out with you when you say, let me pick you up in my private jet.
Yes.
Pro tip, buy a jet.
Easy. That's amazing. Well, with the Rolex, it said that the only people that know that it's a $35,000 watch are the people that can afford
What Rolex is it?
I don't know.
It's got to be a Daytona or it's got to be a
car
precious,
guy.
like
Sounds
a
like a
platinum.
Daytona.
Are you guys watch guys?
Yes.
Yeah. I love watches.
With your Apple Watch?
Yeah, with this one.
Do you have
this is
a
vacation
Rolex?
watch.
Do you have a Daytona?
I don't have the
You don't have
That's the
Daytona.
one watch I want, but they're coming down in price. So I'm waiting to save them.
Do you look at that as an investment then? If you were to buy something like that, like the Daytona, you'd say, "Hey, this is going to go up in value."
Yeah, the one I specifically want is either a 1990 or a 2000 Zenith Daytona. So only those 2 years. and they're going down in price. So like they went up to like 50 grand in the peak of the pandemic, but now they're hovering around like 25, and I think they're going to go below 20.
Yeah.
Really?
So yeah.
My dad bought a 69 Camaro convertible when I was like in 10th grade or 9th grade. And I don't know, it was maybe 25 grand he paid for it. And then we drove it. Like I took it to prom my junior year, senior year. We drove it around, had a great time with it. He had fun with it. And then when I went to college, he sold it for like 25 or 30 grand. And it taught me that lesson that like, oh, like you can enjoy something. Like if you buy an asset, like he didn't buy a brand new car that was going to depreciate. He bought an asset that would most likely go up. Now I don't even know if he knew what he was doing with that.
No.
But we got to enjoy full use out of it for a number of years and then got to sell it. So today I kind of take that same approach with housing. Like I just told you earlier, I just bought a new house. And I'm like, I just bought a $4 million house and I already have another $3 million and another $3 million house. I'm like, well, why would I do that? Because I'm getting it on fixed rate debt that I know I could rent it out for more. So I can enjoy it for as long as I want to. And someday, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 30 years, I'll sell it for more. So like that's the thing.
Which is what you're going
to
to
do.
do.
You get to enjoy assets.
What's your interest rate on the new house?
7.1, I think.
7.1. Do you think you'll refinance probably in the future?
Probably. I put down 75%.
Wow.
The down payment on it.
Okay.
Because I wanted it to make sure that I could I could rent it out more than cover the cost.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to ever put myself in a bad position with buying an asset. So I think my whole mortgage is going to be 10 grand a month, and I could rent out the entire thing for 15.
Now,
easily.
couldn't you though rent a similar house for less than it would cost you to tie up the capital?
I probably could, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the most financially like. Could I get a higher return taking all that cash that I put down on it and put it in something else? Yes. But I'm a huge, I'm a real estate nerd, first of all. So I'm going to put it in real estate because I love real estate. And then just the enjoyment of owning my own house. Like, I just have a real problem with people telling me what I can and cannot do. So if I don't own my house and I'm like, well, I want to paint the bedroom. And they're like, oh, sorry, you can't. I'd be like, screw you.
Why don't you just paint it?
What?
Just paint the bedroom.
No.
I
I
don't
don't
think
I just don't like people telling me what I can do. So I want to own the asset.
If they don't know, that's
if they don't know, and I did do that. Actually,
the
last house I rented, I would have been 27 years old. Yeah, I remodeled the entire house without telling them. I just
Did you?
Yeah, I remodeled the house inside. I did all my own work. I repainted it. I did new floors. Kind of like we did in this office.
Yeah.
We remodeled this whole office.
This is the same conversation Graham and I have all the time. I'm like, Graham, should I pay down the house? Like, I can pay it off cash. I owe like $1 million on it. He's like, no, he's 2.5% interest. You could get so much higher somewhere else. I'm like, I know, but
it's
just
2.5.
yeah.
Do not pay that
You know,
off.
Yeah, I know.
One of my favorite books is a book out there. It's kind of a cheesy book, but it's called Life and Air. You heard of this?
No.
So life and air, it's like the word millionaire, but with the word life in front of it. And they made this really good point in the book. It's a fable, so it's like a story. And again, it's kind of cheesy, but the point they made is, hey, if the goal of your life is to be as rich as possible, then you play by certain rules, like don't pay your house off. And I don't pay my house off. But if the goal of life is to get as much money as possible and maximize your return on every step, then you play by rules that get you there. And they're like, well, is that the goal of your life to get as rich as possible? And the answer, of course, is, well, no. And it's like, well, what is the goal of your life? Well, it's to have the most fulfilling life possible. Well, then we play by different rules. And so kind of like it shifted my mindset a lot on things like I don't mind when people, if they want to pay their house off, it's not the smartest financial move if you have a 2.5% thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But if it makes your wife happy or your, whatever, all of a sudden then there are different rules we play by. So just something I've been thinking a lot about lately is making sure I'm playing the rules that I'm playing by match up with the goal of the game I'm playing.
And what's interesting is I feel like everyone has their rule that they break.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
even if their goal is to get as much money as possible, everyone has that one thing that's
Yeah,
like, you
so
know what, I'm going to buy this watch or this car. I feel like
Yep.
Graham, you have those things where it's like you have the GT, you have a couple really
Those
cool
were
cars.
investments.
Those-
They're very,
Yeah,
they're,
that's fair,
The
but-
aquarium is the only
But
thing.
are they the
that-
best investments?
Oh yeah, because you get a higher return.
Right.
GT was a great. GT was a really good investment, though.
Sure.
Did you
but
know that at the
yeah.
beginning though? Or
Compared to
yes,
what?
I did.
Okay, you knew it was going to be a really good
Yeah,
investment.
yeah. I'm
But
up
what-
like
what's a
30
GT?
something % on that
Some
car.
fancy
But
Oh, it's a car.
over how many years? Could
3
you have,
years.
could you have put that into the S&P or Bitcoin? and
Yeah,
gotten more?
but I think it's a different risk profile for the S&P.
sure.
Bitcoin would have been fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
we didn't
yeah.
know. Yeah. Well, I want to
Or
talk
would
about that
it have
actually. I
been?
love
2021 is when I bought the car.
What was it at? Like
That
Bitcoin-
was when it was at 60 and
Yeah,
then it dropped down to like 17
Right.
Okay.
in
Yeah, I
2022.
think so. Yeah. So I
Depends
think
on
it's
when, I
probably
guess.
better in the car. S&P would have been close.
Okay.
So I would love to. I want to pick your guys' brain a bit on things like crypto, where you think that's going. I would love to talk about the real estate market today, in terms of like what do you guys think about real estate, and I want to talk a little bit about just how people can build wealth in 2024 and on, like especially younger people. Like what do you want? But before we get to all of that, I want to bring in this week's show sponsor. But one thing we do different on the show, and I'm just going to spring this on you, is we dedicate 100% of the revenue from the ad sponsors towards a charity of the guest's choosing. So I'm wondering if you have any kind of charity that you would like to support, or a cause that we can find a charity that works for that cause. Like, what's near and dear to your heart? What do you care about in the world that we can
charity
send
water.
money to?
Charity
water.
Yeah.
Do we had Scott Harrison, the founder?
Did you
on this-
really?
on this podcast.
That's
yeah,
cool.
He's a buddy of mine.
That's
I
awesome.
love charity water.
Yeah, me too.
They're such a good one. What about you?
Oh man, for me it's coral reefs, but
Yeah.
like I don't know if that's you want to
There's some good,
coral
there's
reefs.
some good
There's one
Maui.
here in Maui,
There's some good
Is
Maui
there like a coral
organizations that
preservation or
they're trying to
something like
preserve,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
We'll find a good one for that.
That'd be cool.
All right, we're gonna send them money
All
for
right,
that
so we got
one.
a good balance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
okay,
did
good.
the ATV tour and they were planting the trees, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reforestation.
Poly?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, with that said, let's hear from the sponsor.
Hey, do you want to be a guest on the Better Life podcast? Well, I got an opportunity for you. Exciting news. We're about to launch a second episode of the podcast every week. New episodes are going to be called Cash Flow Fridays, and they're going to come out every Friday, and they're going to be about cash flow. So what I need from you, cash flowing real estate is actually really hard to come by in 2024. We all know that. But there are niches and strategies out there like, assisted living, outdoor storage, RV parks, co-living, things like that are still showing huge returns, kind of these fringe things. So if that's you, if you're doing that, if you're buying deals in 2024, I want you on the show. So here's how you apply. Go to abetterlife.com/podcast guest and just fill out the form. Or you can go to Instagram and DM me the letter CFF. That's CFF, no spaces. And then I'll automatically send you a link to apply. I hope to be interviewing you soon.
All right, so let's start with crypto because we kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
What are you guys thinking on crypto? What should people think about it? What are you doing with it?
Oh my gosh.
You want me to go
I have
first?
no idea. I'm going to say this. I have no idea where crypto's going. But it's really interesting because in the crypto community, there's people that are vehemently against people that call Bitcoin crypto. They're like, crypto
Really?
is one thing, Bitcoin's completely separate. Cryptocurrency is like 99.9% of everything else. Bitcoin's a separate thing that's a commodity and not a currency, its own thing. So I can kind of speak on Bitcoin. The rest of crypto, I have no idea.
Okay.
But I feel like Bitcoin 10 years from now, 5 years from now will be worth so much more valuable than, you just did an
Yeah.
interview with Michael Saylor
Michael
and he
Saylor's
said 30%
amazing.
per year.
Yeah, that's his long term, is that
Yeah.
Bitcoin's going to be going up 30 to 40% a year is what he believes. I don't know. I believe probably 99.99% of crypto is worthless.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Bitcoin and Ethereum are probably the only two that I find interesting. Bitcoin is, I like Bitcoin. Like I tend to believe more that it's going to be worth more 20 years from now than less.
Yeah.
But I've only put in enough in Bitcoin where if it goes to zero, I'd be kind of bummed, but I wouldn't be
I
like,
wouldn't.
yeah. I'm basically, I'm writing off mentally any money I put in Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, it's worth zero. I don't have access to it. 30 years, I'll check.
Yep.
If it's worth something, great. If it's worth nothing, I already wrote it off.
He's all in.
He's all in. It's my angel
All in.
decision in my life was Bitcoin.
Worst.
So in 2021, I sat down. Crypto was, I think Bitcoin had just hit, like they hit $60,000. And I sat down with a friend who was all in on Bitcoin.
It's going to be $1 million this year.
Well, that's what he told me. He said by 2025,
There was so
it'll-
much of that.
By 2025, this is 2021, it'll be $500,000 a coin, and by 2030, it'll be $1 million a coin. And so he was like, "You are doing your kids a disservice. We have 3 kids if you don't buy each of them a coin." And so I went, and at that time, I had just started making money, and I bought 3 Bitcoins and bought each one of them.
At what price? Do you remember?
It was, I
And
think
then,
about
yeah,
like
60.
58,000.
Okay.
And then literally over the next 6 months, it dropped down to under 20. Yeah. And so then I ended up selling at about 30.
Oh, you're one of
Yeah, no,
those.
I
Yeah.
can't- well, no,
Buy
this-
high,
this-
sell low.
Yeah,
sure.
I was like, I can't take this anymore. I know what real estate is, and I know that was my problem though, is I was so uneducated on it, where I didn't even I
You know
still
what you're
don't
going to do, man? You're
understand.
going to buy back in at $1 million.
Oh, I already
and then it's going to drop down to
I
like
already did buy
100
back
be
in.
like,
I already bought back in at 60 something.
No kidding.
Just
No.
recent- Yes, because now I'm.
Oh,
You know,
we got to sell.
Everyone has
No, we
exactly.
Everyone has that story that they got burned by Bitcoin. Like my story was in 2014, I bought 6 of them for $600 a piece. And I was like, everyone's talking about this Bitcoin thing. I kind of don't get it. I've heard about it since 2012. I was like, okay, I'll get in on this. It was Coinbase. I bought it and I held on to it and it dropped by half. Like a year later, I'm like, where is it at? That $6,000 investment turned into $3,000. I was like, dude, I'm just going to sell it.
Oh.
And I sold it for sorry, 3,000 turned into 1,500. At the time, DJI just came out with a drone, like the Phantom 3. I bought that thing with 6 Bitcoins for $1,500, which
So now it's an expensive drone.
a very expensive drone that I eventually broke. So I feel like everyone has that story. But I think what's kind of interesting is I think 2001 gold got securitized. If you guys remember, before it was you could only buy like the actual physical gold. After it got securitized, I believe it was 7 years later, the price quadrupled. And just this year, Bitcoin was securitized. So now you have all these retirement accounts, grandpa, grandma are putting it into their 401ks without even knowing it's on their balance sheet. I mean, I think at this point, it's gotten to such a size that it's not going away. I don't think it can. I mean, I don't know what I don't know, but
my argument was always early on was I would look back at the car. I don't remember where I first heard it. It may have even been on one of your guys' YouTubes, but it was the idea of like back in 1920 when the cars were starting to be made, Ford was just one of dozens, if not hundreds of car companies. And then over the years, Ford just like a few of them, 4 or 5 car companies emerged as like these are the car companies in America. But there were hundreds, if not thousands at one time. And so oftentimes we look at like, oh yeah, if only I'd invested in Ford at this point. Well, Ford was just one of like it's survivor bias to be able to look back and say, so like is Bitcoin the one? I think for the first like now I'm like, okay, I think Bitcoin is Ford. Like now we could probably say that if one's gonna make it, it's probably gonna be that one. But I'm still not convinced because there's been, Chrysler or, there's been big, massive car companies that just get sold up or shut down.
Do you have any Bitcoin? Or?
I have like 10 grand worth.
10 grand?
It dropped to like 5 grand, then went back up to 10 grand.
Okay.
So
not a believer then.
I'm not a believer. I mean, I don't have I don't think I own a single stock right now or anything related to stocks. I'm 100% into real estate, but a variety of real estate. And so I'm one of those like have one basket, but then guard that basket.
Yeah, but you don't need to diversify. Yeah.
Is because I'm that way. I do have a little bit of Bitcoin because I just jump on anything that sounds cool and seems like that. But for someone like us, where I'm basically 100% invested in real estate, and it's a sizable amount of money, what would you guys do to diversify? Where would you guys be looking at?
I feel like it's such a different advice when you're talking about people that like you guys are probably very successful and very wealthy because you don't need to diversify if you're good at what you like. Dave Ramsey, 99% of his wealth, his net worth is real estate. He's a billionaire. I would never tell Dave Ramsey like, Dave, you should diversify.
Dave, you're an idiot, man.
I offered him a Bitcoin on his show. He didn't want it.
You would give him a Bitcoin.
I would have given him a Bitcoin.
Give him 60 grand.
Yes.
On that show.
I was like, if you donate it to a charity. And he's like, nope, I'll just give it back to you. I was like, okay.
Do that to me right now.
Okay. Yeah, you didn't take it. Didn't take it.
Think of what that would do to the price, though, if it's like Dave Ramsey buys Bitcoin.
I don't think Bitcoin would care. You know what's funny? Bitcoin like swallows people and spits them back out. Like the first time I talked about Bitcoin was when YouTube, who was the CEO at the time?
Susan
Wojcicki. Yeah. She released like a video it was like a year-end wrap, and she talked about, I use YouTube to learn about Bitcoin. I'm like, YouTube's letting people talk about Bitcoin. Because before then, it was like shadow ban. You couldn't even mention it. Your video would just die on the spot.
Wow.
And I was like, cool, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin. The moment I mentioned it, Gemini, like the Winklevoss twins were like, oh, Andrei Jikh, YouTuber, talks about Bitcoin. And then it has maybe some like marginal effect on the price, and then it just stops caring. Like, remember Elon started tweeting about Bitcoin, and then he started buying it? It had an effect, and then Elon could talk about it.
Short-term effect.
Short-term. Long-term, it does not matter.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know, but I like as much as I love Bitcoin, I'm still 25% of my net worth into it. It's not like 90% or something ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know. I like to spread out my money. So I like, I have my index funds, real estate, treasuries, a small amount of crypto, and then alternative assets, which I would call like the car.
Right.
Where, hey, I think it's going to go up in price and maybe not, and that's fine.
That's the one thing I need to do too. Treasuries. I just have cash. Still, I'm an idiot. I need to have treasuries. Yeah.
I mean, again, but the goal of your life is not to get as rich as possible.
It's not,
so if cash makes you feel good,
it does.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But there are treasury funds that you could put your money into.
How liquid are they?
A day.
A day?
1 day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do those return typically?
5.3 right now.
5.3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got.
But of course, that's going to fluctuate. That's going to go down versus buying a treasury for the next 6 months. It's locked in, but you get liquidity.
I had the TIPS treasury, the inflation bond for that was paying I think 9% at the time when I bought it. Yeah,
9%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was short term.
It
And
was
the S&P
short-term.
outperformed it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It was short term.
All right.
that was the best time to buy the S&P.
Oh.
In hindsight, was when that was offering 9%,
Mm.
because that was the bottom for the S&P.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the economy a little bit and where it's headed. So I've watched kind of both of your videos and doing a little bit of prep for this, and you both talk about it. Things like, the recession, the Federal Reserve. What are they doing? There's some new stuff with that. Where do you see? Let me tee it up this way. The Federal Reserve feels like they're kind of in a tight spot with interest rates. And I know they don't directly influence our interest rates, but roundabout way they do. In that if they lower rates suddenly or anytime soon, there's such a demand for housing right now, if we want to specifically talk about that, it's just going to jack the price higher. And they're already, like, especially in election season, everyone's freaking out about the price of housing. It's going to make it way worse. So they cannot really lower rates on us. At the same time, it seems to be like hurting the economy. So they're in a tight spot right now. Where do you see that going? Do you agree with that kind of analysis?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to start selling when interest rates go down.
You think so?
Mhm.
Yeah, because everyone that I see,
too, right?
yeah, there's so many people who would like to move, but they don't want to get a higher interest rate. So I think it's like when interest rates hit about 5% is the middle ground that's going to prompt a lot of people to start to sell. And I think more inventory is going to come on the market because of that. I don't know.
You
But
don't
they
think
got to
there's
move
enough-
somewhere.
Like,
So
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
And I think they're gonna. I would guess that most buyers in America, I could be wrong on this one, but buyer mentality. If you own a house, you're probably not becoming a renter. So even if they were to sell, they're going to buy something else, which cancels all that out.
And
I'd
then
become a
renters are
renter.
gonna buy.
Like I would become a renter.
You'd become a
today.
renter.
Yeah.
If
If I
today,
was
in today's
yeah,
world.
in
Okay.
today's world, I'd be
So-
a renter. I would because I look at the market daily.
But would you ever
we rent
sell
right now?
Would you ever sell your real estate and start renting?
It depends on what I'm offered. Yeah.
Okay.
Like right now, I'm locked in at 2.8.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
like that's a tough one to get competitive on. But like if it like I look daily at properties in Vegas for sale, and I look at rents, and the rents are so much better. Like
Oh.
there's one house that I looked at the Ridges that would have cost about 3.8 to buy it. When you look at the cost of buying it, it's like $20-something thousand a month, or you could rent it for $12,500 a
That's
month.
our house
all in. It's
exactly.
like, oh,
Yeah.
But
you rent it.
We rent for 10 and our house is probably worth 3. We don't own our house,
Yeah.
but we rent for 10. I'm like, you could
Wow.
go buy a house and pay $20,000 a month or rent it for 10
Right.
and not have to sleep at
But
night.
you do miss out on the appreciation.
That's assuming it keeps
Assuming
going up.
it keeps going up, yeah. Which
Or you just invest the difference of $10,000 a month and have the mobility to be able to move without any like repair crap. Like I just had $1,000 AC bill on a rental property that just came out of nowhere. That just evaporates.
Yep.
That money's
So
gone.
supposedly the Fed's going to lower rates in September.
Yeah.
So when they do,
I don't think
they-
it's September. I think it's probably going to be November.
you think November?
it's gonna be November?
Okay.
They
I would
want a
guess-
few months of.
I was gonna say, I think they're gonna wait till after the election to do anything. I would my guess, but just to not, throw a big
Right.
grenade
Make it
into the
seem
room.
like right.
Yeah.
So I think kind of what you said, if interest rates come down, the people that sell are going to just be buying another house. But then you're going to have a ton of people in the rental market, me being one of them, where it's like, hey, we have the money to buy a house. It just doesn't make financial sense to buy a house because I can rent for so much cheaper than to buy. And we'll become buyers. And I think that we are going to see the market go crazy when that happens. Because right now you're seeing, like, I think I just looked nationally, we're up to like 3.5 months of inventory on the market, if I remember correctly, which has grown a ton over the last year. So I think if interest rates don't come back down, you're going to see a housing market crash. And I mean, you're already seeing it.
Well, what's crazy is like after rates went up, houses never corrected.
No.
They went
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So I can't see a world where real estate would go down when rates go down. I can't see it. But
I'm sure a lot of people said that in 2005. It's like the market's doing so well, everyone's buying
just
it.
told
Like
you
I,
that
it's
I'm
it's like
completely
you don't know
tied
what
up
you
in
don't
the
know.
real
Yeah,
estate.
it's so
kind of what I
complex.
think.
Yeah, it's so complex.
It is
and there's so many
complex,
things. But I generally would, if I was a betting man, I would. I mean,
Right.
I am.
You are, right?
I'm buying a lot of stuff right now,
Yeah.
assuming that. I mean, at least assuming that 10 years from now or 20 years from now, real estate's worth way more than it is today. That's my assumption.
Probably.
That long term, we've got. I mean, if you just look look at the data. I don't know if you guys follow Ken McElroy at all. He's a billionaire. He's like the rich dad. He wrote a bunch of rich dad books on real estate. But he's been talking a lot about the data around inventory and what they're not building. Like, for example, right now, nobody's building anything almost in America right now, like period, because the interest rates are so high. So nobody's starting new builds. We're already 3 million housing units short in America to begin with. Nobody's building anything. And so the next couple of years are going to be rough.
Right.
And then rents are just going to, according to his data, and it's really compelling, rents are going to skyrocket. And when that happens, I think the only solution the government's going to be able to do and every politician is going to have to jump to it, even the right, is going to be rent control. And so that's my biggest fear is that we're going to have nationwide rent control at some point in the next few
I
years.
could see that. Didn't California just pass something, or it was like
Yeah, I mean,
Los
they're
Angeles?
already
The
pretty
all
rough.
of Los Angeles
Yeah.
is
I would not buy in California anyway, or Oregon, or Washington, or Michigan, or New York, because those are all really rough rent control states. But I see that going nationwide at some point. But you know, there's people make money in California still on real estate, even with rent control.
How do you feel about Maui's real estate?
I mean, I think you're at a very limited supply here, which is not a bad thing. I think that the economy in general is becoming more and more transient. So if people can live in, Topeka, Kansas,
Right.
and work online and then move to Maui, which is exactly what they're doing, that's only going to be beneficial for places like this.
Right.
Places like Southern California, Texas, all of it. Like when people from the rest of the world can now not have to live in the cold North or the Midwest, I think we're going to see a lot of movement. So I'm pretty confident.
bullish on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
It just feels like Hawaii real estate is global at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's
It
so
is.
desirable.
It is.
It's and they're so strict on any sort of building permits. And allowing
Yeah.
that there's really never going to be more houses built, or in
Yeah,
very
yeah.
limited capacity. So there's
They don't allow apartment complexes to
yeah.
get built here. They don't allow anything.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't approve. It's an interesting, actually, really interesting dynamic where, like, the locals, the people that have lived here a long time, especially the native Hawaiians, like, they really don't want more building. They want to keep the island small. And they're the ones that largely control the politicians because they're a large vote. So the politicians are like, you're right, we're not going to build anything. You can't stop, it's an American state. I mean, it's a state, right? You can't stop people from moving to a state in America. And so what you have is you have politicians that say, we will not build or allow building permits, but everybody can come in all they want. And so now we have an increasing population with no more building. So the only thing that can possibly happen then is rents go up, right? Just supply and demand. You have
There's a lot of land here.
There's a
though,
lot,
so
but
you
they just
can't-
won't build.
government. Yeah, they won't build.
They won't build.
They will never build on that
It
land.
takes years to get a building permit. I mean, even the whole Lahaina mess is a whole different thing. But that's like, they approve the max they can approve is about 100 permits a year for building here,
Wow.
and they have 2,000 to build. Like they just don't have the infrastructure at the time. So it's
What about commercial real estate here? Buying like this little
yeah.
shopping center or something like that? No.
I don't know. I mean, there's a price for everything, I suppose.
Yeah.
I would love to buy this.
Yeah.
I'm already
It'd be
renting this
hard
thing.
though, because it's tough for small businesses to make it here too.
Yes.
It's very tough. So it'd be scary to buy that. But like I've got a buddy right now who's been waiting 18 months. He's redoing his backyard, putting in a pool, and doing some grading and retaining wall. He's been waiting 18 months for his permit. to get that.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's insane.
It's insane.
What's the state income tax here?
10 something,
yeah,
11.
it's high.
It's
Yeah,
high.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's 11%.
It's pretty
It's
rough.
California levels here.
Yeah. And the price of
Yeah,
California.
I looked at it in like 2020,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity. Like,
Yeah.
and we're going to go to
Yeah.
Vegas. Like,
Yeah.
what would Hawaii be
Yeah.
like? I think there was a point there where I was seriously thinking,
Yeah.
maybe I could do like 6 months here.
That's
Something
been like
that,
one
you
of
know?
my pipe dreams. I'm like, I would love to own
Yeah,
something
I
in Oahu
remember
or like
looking
or
to some
Maui.
fun.
It really is.
It's the most beautiful.
Yeah,
the
I
people
agree.
here are so
Taxes are
nice.
high.
Like
I agree.
community feel.
Yeah.
It's the best place in the
This
world.
might be like one of those boat things though, where like you don't need to own a boat, you have to have a friend with a boat. And
Right.
so like I have my, you can come stay with me and you can go out to. It's like why would you own one and just come and stay? I don't want to own a boat. I want to have a friend with a boat. Same thing. So all right. So is the economy going to crash? Are we going to see a massive recession? Are we in a recession? What do you guys see?
Gosh.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, it never
You know?
does. Like, I don't think anyone's predicted it, but man, the only thing I think that worries me is just the de-dollarization part that's happening around the world. That's the part that
Explain
I'm
that,
paying
'cause I saw you put out a video about
Yeah.
that, and I'm clueless on it.
Yeah, me too. I'm trying to understand it. So the de-dollarization concept is just the world becoming less reliant on dollars, and it's. I mean, for 50 years, the U.S. has been extremely prosperous because we've been on the petrodollar system, and just countries around the world have used dollars. And what that's allowed the U.S. to do is it's allowed us to control prices in a way, basically inflation. The reason that we see countries collapse and their currencies go to crap is because they cannot export their currency, their inflation, because no one needs or trusts their currencies for the most part. So you have all these countries buying U.S. treasuries, because they want to collect an interest on it. So they park their money with us. They buy up our real estate. They buy up our securities. So we've been extremely fortunate for the last 50 years, which is one of the reasons why the U.S. is so prosperous. And lately, what we're seeing is this new BRICS alliance: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and it's kind of interesting because they're getting rid of their dollars slowly. And if you look at like the last, I don't know, was it 50 years of dollars in use around the world, it's been declining, and it's sort of speeding up because countries like Russia and North Korea, I don't know if you guys saw the news recently, they teamed up, and Putin visited for the first time in 24 years.
Putin and Kim, whatever, I was like driving a car together.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was like, it reminded me like driving in cars with comedians or whatever.
Did you see Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah, exactly. Having a great time.
A vintage Porsche.
Dictators in cars getting coffee.
Getting the blood of their enemies.
So basically, the long story short is by countries aligning together and not being so dependent on their use of dollars, what that does here at home is the next time we have problems with the economy and the Fed's like, hey, quantitative easing, money printer on, all that means is we have less of a place to export that inflation. So it's like if you think of a balloon and you can sort of let go of the balloon's little exit point, what do you call it, a little hole? It just shrinks the hole of that balloon. So the next time we
what
inflate,
is the hole of a balloon called?
I don't even know.
Should have a name for that,
right?
There's got to be a name for it. The nipple.
The nipple.
The nipple of the balloon.
Okay, so
I
the
feel like
nipple.
that'd be the other end. It's more like the nipple, the other end of the balloon.
The butt of the balloon.
We're going with that.
It shrinks, right? It shrinks. So that means inflation stays here longer, higher, if the Federal Reserve, Congress, monetary policy, all that stuff, if they decide to print money, which is usually the case for most countries when there's a problem. They just inject it with more money, buying treasury bonds, mortgage-backed securities. So I don't know. That's my worry, is just higher inflation for longer, which just means, I guess, own assets.
That's a good case for Bitcoin, though. Because Michael Saylor
really
was
is.
talking about the
It's a big deal.
de-dollarization.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is almost a solution to that. The Bitcoin could be a universal
But-
store of value.
But I think where people get it confused is they think, oh, so you think Bitcoin's going to be like the currency? And I don't think Bitcoin will ever be a currency. I think it might be like a world reserve asset, kind of like our generation's gold. But I don't see it being like a currency. Like we're not going to start pricing stuff in Bitcoin any more than this drink right here is priced in like your commercial real estate. It's like, how much do I have to sell of my real estate to buy this? It doesn't make sense. So that's how I think about it. But what do you guys think?
What about you, Graham?
Yeah, I have no idea.
No.
I have no clue. Every indicator has pointed to a recession for the last few years.
Right.
It's not happened. The yield curve, I think, has been more inverted now than it ever has been throughout history. Seems like things are going well, but then again, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But overall, it seems like people are better off today than they were 4 years ago. But then you also have a segment where they're way worse off. So I'd say, from what I could tell, it seems like the average person is a little bit better off, but there's a segment that just got destroyed and they're dealing with higher rents, higher cost of borrowing, higher cost of living. Those people are suffering. But if you have any amount of investments or you own real estate, you are doing better.
And the inverted yield curve, how long is it? Like 12 to 18 months when it happens?
Yeah, usually it's a delay of that, but it's been inverted for like
For a
years.
while.
Explain the inverted yield curve. Inverted yield curve.
Yeah, so that is because usually when you invest your money, if you're giving me money, you think there's more risk long term than there is in the short term. Like if you give me $10, you think it's pretty safe to say tomorrow I'm going to give you back that $10. But if you give me $10 and you say, hey, 30 years from now I want this amount, there's more stuff that could happen in that time, and you're tying up money for longer, so you'd want a higher return. The yield curve in the short term is that short-term rates are paying way more because people believe in the long term that interest rates are going to go back down. There's more risk in the short term. So short-term interest rates are paying higher than long term, which is why it's inverted. It should be the other way around. The longer you invest your money, the higher the return you should get because you have a higher chance of risk And they're tying up money for longer. So
And
you
then-
want to be compensated for that.
And every time that's happened, it's predicted like 12 of the last 11 recessions or
Yeah,
something.
it's a high rate, but so far there's no recession, and it doesn't appear as though there's going to be a recession.
Yeah.
Now, the alternative theory is that after elections, maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, and then you get into conspiracies.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it's so and so is doing this on purpose to get reelected, and
Right.
it's all part of the plan. I don't know.
Well, I feel like
Yeah.
COVID was such a like black swan event that just I feel like just threw everything out the window, like just conventional knowledge, like in ways that we'll never fully understand. It's just too complex. But like we shut down the entire world for a couple of years, and so it's like, and then we printed a ridiculous amount of money, and so all those things come into play, and to the point where we're just in uncharted territory.
Yeah.
So in a world where we're in uncharted territory, we're like, we could go into a recession, a depression. We could thrive. We have no idea what's coming. I mean,
Right.
even the smartest people
Right.
really don't know. What are you guys doing to thrive in the future? Like, what are you doing with your money, or what are you personally doing?
I'm not doing anything different than I've always been doing. Like, I'm not somebody who's like, oh, even if I think something's going to happen or I'm placing my money, I'm not doing anything different. So I'm still roughly 20% cash, 20% crypto, 20% real estate, 20% S&P, and 20% sort of alternative.
I think you got an extra 20 in there, right?
No, I
think
just-
you got
I
like
did-
620.
I did
20%.
five categories, right?
I thought that was like 6 or 7.
Someone's gonna rewind.
That was-
for
that was
10 seconds
5.
and
I
listen.
think
Was
that
it?
was 5.
Okay, I
right?
thought it
Real
was 6.
estate,
I could be
crypto,
wrong.
Real estate,
cash.
crypto,
We could put it on the
cash.
screen here.
Yeah.
How many
S&P
20s?
and alternatives.
Alternative, yeah, that's 5.
That's
That's
5.
5.
100.
Okay, I thought 6, but
Yeah, it's 5.
What's your real estate look like, by the way?
So I own my house outright. I bought it in 2021. I think it was like February, right before real estate took off.
Yep.
And what sucks is I didn't have 2 years of income, so I couldn't get a loan on it, which at the time I think was like 2% or something ridiculous. But I saw this house that it was just dumb luck. It was chance. I saw the same house listed on the market where I got my first job out of, basically. And I always loved that house, and I could never afford it. I'm like, this is the house. This is so cool. So I gave a cash offer, bought it in 2021. So I own my house outright, and I bought a rental in 2022, and I got the 2.5% interest, but I didn't lock it. So it's a 7 adjustable rate mortgage.
7-year
So
arm, yeah.
I still have it locked for 7 years. My bet is in 7 years, rates will be lower. I know not everybody agrees. So far, everything's like the numbers are penciling in. It's cash flow positive, but I'm just renting that out.
Did you buy it in Vegas?
Yeah, I
Okay.
bought both in Vegas.
And how do you manage that? Is you self-manage it right now?
No. I
you
have
have
a
property
company
manager
a
and-
property manager, that does
so
it.
It's pretty hands-off at that point.
Yeah, super hands off.
Yeah. Do you plan to buy more real estate? Is that
I would love to, but I don't want to do it in Vegas. I'd prefer to do it and I'm more emotional with the real estate stuff. I'm not like Graham, where he's just really like analytical about everything. And I try to be too, but I think a part of me is like, I would love to have this house. Like if worst case scenario, I could live in it.
Yeah.
And I love that house.
Yeah.
So it would have been way smarter for me in hindsight to buy like 3 or 4 normal houses than the one that I bought that was the rental.
Is it like a luxury rental?
It's a luxury
It
rental. I didn't need to do that, but I was like, worst case scenario, I could either put my parents in there or I could live in there.
Yeah.
And it's like the best community in Las Vegas. It's
You do get better tenant quality, a lot less
way
problems.
better.
Yeah.
Oh my
Way
gosh.
fewer problems, less evictions, less repairs, maintenance, all of that.
Yeah,
So
like
there's something
my
to say about just
my
ease.
tenant's a sales guy in the medical industry, and he's making like 30 or 40 grand a month. I mean, it's amazing, and his rent's like 6.5, 7,000.
Yeah.
He's fine.
I like seeing that.
Yeah.
Like that sort of discrepancy between how much they make and how much they rent.
Me
like
too,
a few of my rentals in LA will be around $3,000 a month, but I see they make like 20 to 30.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
love
Yeah,
that because it's
yeah.
like, oh, it's awesome. They're making 360 grand a year, but spending $3,000 a month on
Yeah.
rent. Like
Yeah.
that's someone who knows their finances. They're living way below their means. I love that.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
at least there's that.
Yeah.
I used to have I got rid of almost all of them now, except for open door capital portfolio. Obviously, is different. But my personal portfolio, I would have rents, that were $500 a month, and the person would make $1,200 a month in total.
Wow.
It was so hard. But like I lived in a low income area where
Mhm.
they were making $8 an hour, working 30 hours a week or whatever. Like this didn't make a lot of money, and those were always like the ones that had problems. So now I've got a lot more. I wouldn't say quite luxury, but like nicer properties. The apartments we buy are in nice areas.
Yeah.
Because there's a risk reward kind of
Right.
risk profile with all these, and so I will take I will generally take a lower return now to have a nicer property.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not necessarily A class, like, Grant Cardone buys like on the water in Miami A class. Like I'm not going that far, but I want nice properties.
But I love that even on your level, you're still house hacking and
Yeah.
you're still renting out parts of your house. That's really cool.
I can't not do that.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm like, I need, like for me, it's always like, I need a backup in case everything goes wrong. Like I always have that fear. Like I don't want to end up back in an alleyway in that little crappy house in Hoquiam, Washington, where I used to live. Like I just can't go there. So worst case, the entire world falls apart. I can rent out in my new house. I have 4 extra units I could rent out.
Wow.
And it would cover the whole mortgage. I'll only probably rent 1, maybe 2. But yeah, I'm so afraid of losing it all. So
That's really cool.
At your new house, will you rent out the Hana?
I'm not gonna rent out the official Hana, but the no Hana,
Uh-huh.
like the studio in the front. Yeah, I'm gonna rent that out.
Really?
You want to live there?
Yeah.
You can fit you and your kids in there.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
The Ohana, like the official, for those who don't know, an Ohana in Hawaii is like the name for like an ADU. Like in they call them casitas and like in
Mainland?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Arizona they call them mother-in-law apartments. They have a million names.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah.
What do you call them in California? ADU. I think ADUs.
Just an
ADUs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, ADUs in California, they've been passing some new rules. I don't know if you guys have been following that, but fascinating. California's passed these fascinating laws around ADUs, and different cities are doing it as well. You basically, like almost anybody now in California can add a house to their
Correct.
property.
I saw that.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. Talk about like cash on cash return. Like if you can spend $200,000 and be getting, whatever, $2,000 a month on an ADU.
So
And
I
I
looked
think
into
Cleveland can be
getting one on a duplex that I have,
Yep.
but I could turn it into a triplex
Yeah.
with the ADU because it's got a big, deep lot.
Yeah.
And I was quoted, I think it was $250 to $275 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. That was, I think, like 1,500 square feet. But yeah, I could probably rent it
Yeah.
for $25 a month,
Yep.
and I'd spend, let's even call it $300,000,
Yep.
like with
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And
But it's a year and some
Yeah.
change of construction.
Sure.
But they said like they practically guaranteed like if we do this, it'll get approved.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they made it easy.
It's fascinating.
And aren't they offering credits too?
Probably.
I think that they're offering some sort of credit
Yeah.
to just stimulate the housing.
I think that is the answer that I mean, city after city and state after state is falling like dominoes into this ADU thing because they're finally all realizing the only answer we have to our affordable housing in America is going to be ADUs because it solves 2 problems that 2 birds, 1 stone. It's the people who own the house now can offset their mortgage, and the tenant can now rent.
You know
the
what I
house.
really want is micro units.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's what like the like a 1-bedroom
Yep.
in Japan, but like it's basically like a hotel room.
Yeah.
I would do that.
yeah.
Like price
I
per
think there's a
square
lot of
foot, the
people that would.
landlord makes a killing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tenants could save a ton of money. And for the people who just like want to be out and about and just need a place to crash,
Yeah.
like that was me. Like if
Yep.
I were 23 years old and just wanted to be in that best area possible, I could take the elevator down, be in the middle of like Santa Monica, like by the beach, and have 250 square feet. That's what I would do. But they don't allow it. Like permitting process. Impossible.
Yeah.
And the parking requirements.
Yeah,
are
parking is- kills a
like get
lot,
rid of
yeah.
parking requirements.
Yep.
Get rid of a lot of things.
Especially
and just
in
have
cities where
micro
like Ubers
units.
there, like you
Yeah.
don't need parking requirements. Most people-
200 square feet per
Yep.
place with a little kitchen,
Yep.
a bathroom. That's all you need for a single person or a couple
Yeah.
in a great area. They would make so much money. From
We
that.
have a ton of that out here in Hawaii. Like Hawaii's been leading the charge on that for ever, right? Because there's just no housing. So like every house I think I've ever been in Hawaii has like 2, if not 3 units in it, and they're not usually legal. They're just like, oh, this bedroom, we're just gonna put a door on the outside. We're gonna lock it here. So it's still not a legal duplex, but it's not. You're just basically renting by the room.
Yeah.
So it's a legal scenario. But yeah, it's 200 square feet, and you get a little kitchenette, you get a little hot plate. That's
Yeah.
all people need.
But
And so-
people are still doing that, even though it's not by code.
Yeah. Well, it's not that it's not by code. It's just there's a way to do it legally. You just have to have a door that joins to the rest of the house. So you're not renting an official unit. You're simply renting a bedroom in a house.
I see.
And as long as you don't have, there's certain requirements. You can't have a full-size stove. You can have a hot plate. You can have a toaster oven. You can have a
No
you know,
dishwasher, I don't think.
I don't thi- yeah,
I
maybe
don't think there's
yeah.
a dishwasher allowed.
Yeah, I don't
in
think
those.
dishwasher. And there's a few other little requirements,
Yeah.
but as long as you're doing that, you can rent by the room.
How do people get around that? They just put it outside? Because I've seen some of like the washer dryer units that people have in
A
outside.
lot of times, I mean, there's a ton of illegal units here
Yeah.
for sure. People do it all the
okay.
time.
Okay.
But you can do it legally just fine. In fact, I bought a property here in Maui a few years ago. It was a triplex when I bought it. It was a nasty, disgusting triplex. I bought it as a triplex. I fixed it up, put about $100,000 into it, made it beautiful. And then the city came in and shut me down. They're like, nope, not legal to have a triplex here. I'm like, well, I bought it that way. They're like, nope, not to code. So all I did is I went through and I just added doorways where I needed to. And I now have a 7-bedroom house.
Wow.
So that I just rented it out by the bedroom. That still caused drama. I ended up selling it to a buddy of mine. And so now he's renting it basically by the
Okay.
bedroom.
Yeah. Now they
which
got rid of
works.
Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
When
I
did
mean,
that
You can
happen?
have them here, but Hawaii doesn't have many. Which is actually Airbnb is a fascinating thing. Like nationwide, it's like anybody in Airbnb is getting hurt right now, almost except for areas like here in California where they've been anti-Airbnb for a while. It's like the laws were already decided. So like my Airbnbs are just killing it here. Like they're doing really, really
Yeah,
well.
and you're allowed to keep
And I'm allowed,
them.
I'm in a legal, legal area. It's a zoned hotel or a zoned whatever the zoning is. Basically, is allowed to have it. And it's like the narrow strip in front of the beach. That's all you're allowed to have.
Are those properties inherently more expensive because of their
Yes.
ability
Yeah,
to do
for sure.
Airbnbs?
Yeah, like I bought mine for 700 give or take. I have a couple of them. I bought them for like 700, and today they're worth about double that, and that's 4 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's gone up.
Jeez.
Is that the place that I stayed at?
I think so.
Yeah, I remember Macy and I stayed there, and I was looking at the values that they put.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just walk across the street and you're at the beach.
Yeah,
I want to do that.
yeah.
That's so cool.
What's cool about the ones that I got is they call them lock-offs, which is like it's basically a duplex. So it's one condo that has a living room and a bedroom and a kitchen and a bathroom, and then next door is another one bedroom with a bathroom, and they put a door that locks in between, and then they have a separate entrance for both. So I bought one condo, but I got 2 Airbnbs from it, and so that place is. Like that's why that one just works really well. So I have 2 of those. I have 4 total Airbnbs, and yeah, they work. I mean, they're going to shut down. There's a proposal right now to shut down another like 80% of the ones, even the ones that were zone good. They're going to change all those.
No
But
kidding.
yours is still
Mine's
fine.
still
Yeah,
fine.
yours still
How is
in,
yours
like, the-
still fine? How does
There's
yours not?
different zoning.
It's different zoning. Mine's is in a spot that nobody's going to like. Nobody's going to go.
But what makes them stop doing it? And like another time, they're gonna rezone it.
That's what's scary. Is
Yeah.
like one of
Correct.
our good buddies is selling his that is
Yep.
8-year place, right?
Yeah.
Because he's like, I just don't know when it's
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
be.
you might want to
'cause-
sell that. Like,
I've
you
thought
know,
about it.
It's
I look at the
risky
return-
because if
Yeah.
Airbnb gets disallowed in your location,
Correct.
you kind of lose.
Well, didn't
half
that
of
just
its
happen
value.
in
Correct.
like Joshua Tree, Palm Springs,
Yeah, they're cracking
Gatlinburg?
down a lot.
They've created all of these laws around Airbnb, and we've had friends that bought there at the height of the market, saying it's fine because it cash flows so much money, and now they've shut those down, and those housing prices have literally been cut in half in the last 6 months because a cabin in Gatlinburg that you could buy for $1 million, rent out for $15,000 a month. You can only rent out for $5,000.
It started off so good though, but I feel like some people take it to such an extreme where you hear like, I have 100 Airbnbs. And it's like what they're really doing is subleasing like all
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
rentals,
there's a
so,
lot
like,
of
they
that.
go
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
market. And
which is kind of a cool strategy because there's no risk involved.
I
Like,
used to do that.
but it messes,
Yeah.
it messes with the person that you're.
it can
Right.
hurt. Yeah,
Renting from.
it was a fascinating strategy. I mean, what it was Airbnb was an inefficient market, like to use like economic terms. It was super inefficient.
Yes.
and it becomes more efficient. Single family houses are becoming way more efficient.
Right.
That's why Blackstone's getting in and all the big companies, and we're moving towards a world where all those inefficient markets are getting really efficient. So what we're like in my company, Open Door Capital, like we're trying to look now. Okay, where's the inefficiencies in the market? Like where is it still hard? So for example. We're looking into assisted living pretty heavily because like assisted living is hard.
Yes.
It's a really like difficult thing to be in. The big hedge funds aren't going into 16 bedroom houses where they can rent out each one to a old person. Like that's just super inefficient, super like mom and pop. So like we're trying to scale that stuff for now, and like it's just it's looking for where there's
That's
opportunity.
really interesting. I looked into that as well with my friends for just like a nursing home.
Yeah.
There's not. It's interesting. You look at Airbnb as sort of like an arbitrage opportunity. Sort of like in Bitcoin's earlier days, where you can like buy it on one exchange for one price and then sell it somewhere else for like $2 more. And it's basically arbitraging, which makes the market more efficient.
Yes.
So it's interesting how you think about it.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah, we'll see if we get into it, but I think assisted living is one of the strategies in real estate that works today. I'm a big fan. We mentioned earlier rent by the room, like where people can buy like a 7-bedroom house, rent out each one. I know people just
Which is
cleaning up with that.
Where
right
when
now.
you were talking about Japan, like the micro units, like that's where
basically
that's
what that is.
headed.
Yeah.
I want to
is-
see pods.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah,
Sleeping pods in
Yeah, I want
Japan.
to
Yeah.
see.
see
No,
that,
no,
where-
here. Like
Oh.
imagine you just get a pod for a couple, like big enough where
well,
it's
that's
like,
going on in like
it's just
Hong
like
Kong and
this.
Singapore,
Just this.
where it's
Yeah.
literally
You know, it's
sleeping
communal.
pods
Yeah.
that are 70 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's so expensive to rent in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have these pods that people sleep in.
But I gotta say, we went to Tokyo actually this year, and it was so cool. I would love to live there, or just on
I've never
something.
been.
Yeah.
What was the best part of that trip?
Everything.
Yeah, everything. Like I
There-
can't name
there's-
a single
yeah.
thing. The food, the people, everything is so quiet, so clean, very respectful, super safe. Like we're just walking to Tokyo. There's like these 5-year-old kids
Younger.
walking
They must have been like 3 years
by
old.
themselves.
Wow.
3 years old. And like imagine downtown Los Angeles, like skyscrapers,
Yeah.
cars everywhere, and you see like a 3-year-old
Just walking.
just walking.
Have you
by.
seen that TV show where they follow the kid? There's a whole TV show on this. It's in Japan, and what they do is they release a kid that's like 4 years old, and they say, "Go to the store," and the mom will say, "Go to the store and buy this one thing." And the whole point of the show, I think it's on Netflix now, but it was a show in Japan. But the whole point is they hidden camera crews across the entire way will watch the kid, and it's just an entertaining show. And I've watched a couple episodes. It's just this little kid in a backpack, just walking and encountering different obstacles along the way. It's just a reality show.
You could not do that.
No, you could never do that in
When
America.
my kid go out of the house.
That
Yeah,
would be,
I'll be
that would be an
yeah.
interesting show. Put that kid in different spots
Yeah.
throughout the world and
Yeah.
see what happens. But
Different.
America, yeah, you
Yeah, I
got to
would
have
not.
someone step in like pretty quickly.
Yeah. So was it easy to get around there without speaking the language, or do one of you speak the language?
Incredibly easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's always like I would love to go, but I was always worried like I don't speak.
You're
nothing,
totally
nothing.
I feel like it's slightly
Singapore was
harder. Slightly
like that, where it was the cleanest city. It was
Where was
insane.
it?
Singapore.
Singapore,
Oh, yeah, I've heard
yeah.
Singapore was so
unreal.
clean, so
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
Beautiful city. But they do, one of the things there is like you can't chew gum. I didn't know that. Like you can't chew gum because it
Don't they
just
cane
makes.
you there? Is that the place they cane you still? Like,
I
if
did
you-
not get caned.
But you can get caned there, right?
I don't know. That'd be.
I'm pretty sure
I
they
know
can still beat you in
So
Singapore.
one of the interesting
I gotta
things
look that
is
up.
you're
Pretty sure you can
watched
get caned
24/7 there. They have the way that they like do their police system, whatever. There's just cameras everywhere, and they have a place where they sit and watch you literally 24/7.
Jeez.
Everywhere you go, you are being watched, but it keeps people in line. And
I heard that
safe
same
and,
gun
like,
story. If you spit it out on the street, you can get arrested for that.
Hey, they tell you on the plane flying in to not chew gum.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it is Singapore that you can get.
You can still get caned.
They can still cane you. Yeah. Widely used form of corporal punishment in Singapore can be divided into several contexts. Yeah, that's
Singapore
wild.
is the
Hit
coolest
you.
place I've ever been.
I mean, if the crimes were tougher here, I feel like we would have a lot less.
Oh
crime.
yeah,
Oh,
dude. Yeah.
It's
Like if the
ridiculous.
punishment for shoplifting was like death, I hate to say it, people wouldn't shoplift.
No.
Right.
It's just the crime is too big to pay for, this whatever you're
Yeah,
gonna
well,
steal.
Well, in
Singapore
Singapore, they
also-
put to death somebody that
Yeah,
was selling
drugs. Yeah, drugs is
They
death
literally
penalty.
put them to death, and so
And they have no problem.
and then
with
it's just
yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
well, then we're not going to do drugs. Like if it
Right.
was that,
Right.
now it's a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, but then you have
Yeah,
areas
right,
like Amsterdam, or I think Portugal maybe does it now, and I mean so does like Portland, Oregon, where they're like just they hand out needles and drugs to people because it's a
Right.
whole different approach. Like let's just give them all they need,
Right.
and then we won't have. Any
I saw
problems.
an interesting. I have no idea if it's true or not, but apparently, if you steal more than $950 worth of items, it's you get arrested. But like under 950, it's just like you'll just get released.
Yeah.
I heard a story about this one shop owner who charged everything at $951. Everything in the store. And the only way to get the price reduced is to go up and pay for it, and he gives you a rebate back.
Oh,
So that way, if anybody steals anything, it's 951.
That's smart.
It's over the limit. They go to jail.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild that we're in
Smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know,
It's
really
wild
creative.
that
But
we're
they
there.
should never be that way.
No, I've heard that. That's why
Yeah.
you see people like the stores in San Francisco right now. They're not viable because they have to lock everything up and they have to have attendants there go and unlock it when you want just like deodorant or anything,
deodorant.
because people
Yeah,
would
that's
just
a big
go in
one.
and steal everything they could.
Same
and
with the you get like a Sudafed or those like cough medicines. I don't want to sit there, press the button, and like wait like 5 minutes for someone to come in with the key and unlock this thing. And I feel like dirty.
Yeah.
Like just like, oh, let's take one of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is weird.
So
It's a weird world we live in.
it's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of weird world we live in, how does somebody in today's world? I'd love to know your guys' take on this. I know you've done some episodes of your YouTube, and I'm not sure if you've gone this route where you've like looked at a guy who has a dog hotel making a ton of money.
the
or
undercover
people
series,
just different ways people are making a lot of money. What is your favorite way right now for people to make money? To get wealthy.
Well, to get wealthy is different than making money.
So not from the investing
yeah.
standpoint, from an active income
Oh
standpoint.
gosh, the best one that I saw was honestly washing windows. We'll probably wait for this.
Yeah.
They found a shoplifter.
Exactly.
The best way I've honestly seen was the washing the windows bit.
Really?
This guy was making about $1,000 a day just going and washing windows. And he learned how to do that through YouTube. He found a YouTube channel of this guy going door to door selling window cleaning services. and Tyler is his name. He thought, I could do that too. And he went door to door cleaning windows. And he's getting these jobs that are like $200 to $300. And every single time the person tips on top of that. And you have to face a lot of rejection. Like he's getting a lot of people just angry. Get out of my, why do I, like real, like it made me very uncomfortable. But he was so nonchalant. He was just easygoing. But he made $1,000 that day. And we met up, I think at like 8 o'clock in the morning. We finished around like 6. So it was a long day in the Vegas heat.
Yeah.
But to earn $1,000 cash like that, and usually he goes with a buddy who will also wash with him, and I think he pays him like a flat like $150 a day. So his profit could still be $700, and he gets to choose his schedule. It is grueling work. Yeah. You're in the heat, and you only get paid if you're out there and can, But if you're good with people and you could do it, like that's the way to do it. Imagine making $300,000 a year.
Yeah,
at 23, 24 years old.
Yeah,
and you can live
I'd
off of
say
50.
Yeah, if you could do that, if you're like 15 to 18 years old and you have 2 months of summer free, go and do that.
Yeah,
like that's the best job you could possibly do, and just facing that rejection at that age is so good. And if people see honestly like a 16-year-old kid door knocking, they're not going to think salesman. They're going to think, oh, it's probably a neighbor's kid or whatever. And if you just say, hey, I got the summer free. I'm washing windows today. Want to wash your house? Are you interested? Can I do it? I'll wash a few windows for free and see if you like it. That's such a good job. And you don't have to get employed by anybody. You don't have to, there's no interview for that. Just start knocking. And supplies are a few $100.
Yeah. And it's a fairly, I feel like, I don't know if he's getting this far yet, but it's a fairly low skill set needed, so you can find employees to take over a lot of the manual. Like you said, he had that one guy. So like I feel like you could get to the point where you have a guy doing the sales door to door, you have somebody else doing the windows, and now you just run a business. Like you're not even in the business anymore. I feel like you can get out of that business.
Yes, so that's what he wanted to do. I think eventually. The problem with him that I saw that he was having a hard time finding people who were as good as he was when it came to actually washing the windows and carrying. He would tell me a lot of times he would have his guy or have multiple people because sometimes they just wouldn't show up. Even for $150 a day, he'll be there at 9 a.m. and they're nowhere to be seen. They have excuses. They don't want to do it that day. But if you could get a team where it's like you're paying people consistently a certain amount, ideally all he would do is go door to door selling the service and say, okay, perfect. We'll be here in 20 minutes. Or I'm finishing up another job. We'll be right here. And then have his guys do that and he comes back to collect payment.
Yeah.
Jeez.
What about you, Andre?
You win. I got nothing.
Car wash.
If you were starting
car
over,
washing,
let's just say you were starting over right now, just fresh, and you had to go figure out a way to make it. What did you do? YouTube again? I mean, is that still the thing?
It's a cookie cutter answer, but yeah, that's what I did, and I feel like everyone should at least try once. And I know the biggest argument against it is like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I don't know how to shoot videos or what I'm gonna talk about, but there's always something. Sometimes I find creators and I'm like, how is this a thing? But it's a thing. Just I give my opinions about other people or about other events. So it's like there's careers to be made in every industry. But I will say we have a friend, Vince Wang, and he's got a really interesting career. So he runs an e-commerce business with greeting cards. And him and his wife make these beautiful like boxes where people open it and it like explodes as confetti. It's really cool.
Is that what you used for your wedding invite?
Yeah, you got it.
It was amazing.
That was it.
So that was
I was like, I wish I would have had a camera. Like, I wanted to record that, but it's too late.
That was him.
Yeah, so that's
awesome.
our friend Vince.
Those are super cool.
And he does them for like weddings, Father's Day, Mother's Day.
It was the best wedding invite
graduations.
I've ever got, so
really?
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good advertisement for
Vince.
Vince.
What's it called? What's the company called?
I don't know.
How could you not know?
I don't know what the name is. I know him.
Look it up.
Vince Wang. Look up Vince Wang, and I don't know if it's under his name, but anyway, so he wants to get out of that industry because the way he talks about it is it's one of those industries where it's super cyclical. It's dependent on holidays, and it's one of those things where it's a novelty item. So once you buy it once, you're unlikely to come back and do it again. You know what it does. Yep. And he's like, I just want to pivot into something else. And then he like rattles off a list of other things. He's like, anything that's recurring and subscription based. And I'm like, how do you pivot an entire industry into something else? And what's interesting is like once he gets those e-commerce skills of running ads on Facebook or whatever it is he does, it doesn't matter what product he's selling.
Yeah.
He's talking about like supplements and all these other things, but anything that has a recurring subscription model.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. And I mean, I don't know, he's making 7 figures, multiple 7 figures a year, and he's like 23 or 24.
With greeting cards or with
greeting
cards? His greeting cards
alone.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I don't think that's a particularly difficult skill set to acquire.
He's been doing it for a while.
He's been doing it for a
I think
while,
since
yeah.
high school.
Well, and that is
It's
the
one of
secret
those,
to almost
like, yeah.
everybody I know that's successful with anything. It's like, what's the secret to YouTube? You've been doing it for so many years.
Right,
Like, what's
right.
the secret to greeting cards? I did it for 10 years.
Right,
Like,
right.
I'm an expert. Everything takes 10 years, I feel
It
like.
does.
Almost everything. Very few people have ever done it less.
Yeah.
So a question for you, because you started your YouTube channel in 2019.
Yeah.
How long does it take to actually start making money from YouTube?
Oh, that's a good question. So I started in January 2019, and I wasn't monetized until I want to say March, so 3 months into it.
Oh, wow.
But when I say monetized, I mean like $20 a month kind of thing. And it wasn't until October of that year, or actually November, when I made 90% of what I made that entire year. So it was like nothing. It was
Did you
I
just
want
have a video that went viral?
It was
or-
one video that popped off.
Was it the
coincidentally
passive income video?
7 passive income ideas.
That was how I found your channel.
Which I filmed
funny,
in
yeah.
Hawaii of all things. It was like the best thing that happened. I
That's how I
visited
found it. And
Hawaii.
it got like over 1 million
Over
views.
1 million
pretty
views,
quickly.
and it just exploded from there. And like that first year, I made like 180,000. It was
Wow.
ridiculous
On
for
YouTube.
YouTube on YouTube.
Yeah.
So what does like a video that you get 1 million views on? Does it change all the time?
It does change a lot. People's preferences change a lot. I think when I started and when Graham and I started, it was about transparency and showing people like, hey, here's the stocks I'm buying. Here's what I'm doing. And that's what got me interested into it. And I feel like there was a pivotal moment in that industry where everyone started doing it and then people lost interest in that. Or it was kind of associated with like people like shilling things. And that's unfortunate that that's how I think people maybe can see it now. And I think now what's really popping off is just macro content, like macroeconomics. So when you're talking about, you know, Japan's economy or BRICS or whatever it is, China, de-dollarization, things like that, which kind of makes sense because it's now a global audience. You're not just talking about a U.S. audience.
Yeah, you put something out the other day that it was, I think it was it Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
Right? And that thing had a 1.5 million views, something like that, in like
Yeah.
a week. It was like wild.
Yeah, it got to like 2 million in a week. It's
Yeah, it's
ridiculous.
wild.
I didn't expect for that to happen, but that's what people now want to
You
watch.
made a video about India.
Yeah.
I remember that.
That was
And
an experiment.
I thought that was so niche. I was like, who's going to watch this?
Yeah.
Blew up.
Yeah, that was an
I'm-
experiment. I told myself, I was
yeah.
like, you know, if I make a video that involves India's economy,
Yeah.
the hypothesis I had was, I think it'll get to 1 million views really fast. But I also think I'm going to make nothing from it.
Why is that? Is it based upon views or is it
It's the demographic.
the demographic?
Yeah, because they don't have the money, like the money's less
YouTube
over
just
there.
doesn't treat
Yeah.
that audience because they don't have much of a
Really?
disposable income.
So ad
So-
rates are really based on where the viewer is watching from.
Yep.
Right.
And so if I watch Andre's video, it'll pay Andre, let's say $1. If someone from India watches Andre's same video at the same time as me, it'll pay Andre
Like 10
5
cents, 5 cents, yeah.
Something
Really?
like that, yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on the audience. But yeah, that video I kind of knew would get 1 million views, but I think it only paid me like $100 or something. Where normally it would pay roughly 10,000 per million.
Yeah, depending on the subject.
is that typically what it is? At 10,000 per
Typically,
million?
yeah.
Okay.
Typically it's about that.
Yeah.
But I wish I could say like, yeah, I started in 2019, but I've been doing video production and cinematography since like that was probably 12 years old. So
Yeah.
20 some years now. So it's one of those things where it's like it is luck, but it's one of those things where it's just like you said, preparation meets opportunity.
How many hours a week do you guys put into your like channels, like creating videos and like working?
Well, it used to be a lot more.
Yeah.
When I was at the peak, it was 7 days a week, probably 12 hours a day.
Jeez.
And when I wasn't doing YouTube, I was thinking about YouTube. So
Yeah.
it was probably 16 hours a day that I was thinking or working on YouTube. And if I wasn't, in the back of my mind, I was still thinking YouTube. So I could be present in a conversation. I could like have a conversation with you, speak the right things, but in my mind, I was not thinking of
just-
this. I was thinking of like, what am I going to do tomorrow? What
'Cause you were
topic is going to do?
every day for a long time.
At the peak was 11 videos a week, and I did that for, I think, a year. But I did 3 videos a week for almost 7 years. on the main channel while also doing 3 videos a week on the second channel. I did it for almost 7 years.
Wow.
Wow. Why did you have 2 channels?
Just different content.
Really?
I split off in 2018 reaction content because I really liked Cody Co. And I saw he was doing these commentary videos that were doing really well. And I wanted to apply that to finance. And so that first 2 years on that channel was like the golden era where I would post a video, reacts video, and that would do as well as my main channel for the first 2 years. It was insane.
Wow.
Some of the videos even got more views on a reaction video to Millennial Money than my main channel got that I was spending all this time on. So I kept doing them both concurrently.
Are you still doing them both?
I am. I've scaled back a ton.
Really?
I remember watching all of Graham's income update videos where he would
a lot of
release
people
them.
love this.
And I would stay up editing my videos till like 4 a.m. just literally replaying the same video of you talking about, I make $100K a month on YouTube. And I was like, how is that possible? That makes no sense to me.
So
Like,
would you like tell everybody what you made on YouTube?
I did. I did that every single year, really up until I think 2 or 3 years ago. Just because it started to feel less like it felt regurgitated. Like the first year I did it was like, I think I made $26,000 on YouTube. And I broke it down. It was so like new, like no one was doing those videos back then. And I was inspired by Street Speed. I forget, Street Speed 707 or 717. Why? Do you know the channel I'm talking about? He made a video in like 2015 about how much money he made from a viral video or how much money he made on YouTube. And I think back then it was 25 grand a month, which to me was nuts.
Right.
So I saw his video and I thought I could do something similar. And I did it. And I kept it up every single year. And you could see the evolution of like, I was so transparent about like, here's how much money I made from ad revenue. Here's from affiliates. Here's from sponsors. I was so transparent about everything. But then I think in 2021 or 2, it's like I started dreading these videos because it was just like, it's the same thing. There's no new information.
You're not an underdog at that point. It's like, okay, cool.
That's true too.
Yeah, but it's just, there's nothing new that I could bring to the table besides just
Different numbers.
different numbers.
Yeah.
And I started really disliking those videos and it started to feel less helpful and more like, let me just remake the same video, but just change the numbers. And it's the same thing. And so I stopped. I just hated doing those videos.
Do you guys have a full-time team supporting you saying, hey, talk about this, think about this. We're going to write the copy for you.
No.
No.
I don't have anyone, man.
So it's just
I've
you.
never had anyone. Yeah.
That's
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a
But I
while,
think
it was Jack and I. Jack came on in 2020, really like full time. But it was him and I just like spitballing ideas. Like I'd come down and be like, hey, Jack, what do you think of this idea? You like it? Yeah, I'd click on that. All right, cool. That's usually what it was. Or Jack and I would get together with title thumbnails. Like, would you click on this? He's like, no, I wouldn't click on that. And we'd, go back and forth. And for a while, it was so funny. 2020, I remember this. The go-to was just put flames in the thumbnail. Like finance was so bland of a topic that putting flames in a thumbnail for a finance video was unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, so what I used to do is look up nuclear explosion and I'd put that and be like nuclear explosion and then it would be me holding a credit card.
Right.
And just like you're crazy, but it had never been done before.
Yeah.
And so like that was unheard. And those videos would get like 700,000.
Yeah, and it's weird because they're so cringy, like a
so
thumbnail. Like
bad.
we're aware that they are, and people complain. They're like, "Oh, not another shocked face with fire." And it's like we know, but like we try to do the different ones that are reasonable.
We've done them all.
Nobody watches those. Nobody clicks on them.
Like I've done so much A/B testing on the thumbnails. I have tried just about. Sometimes each video I'll do like 7 different thumbnails and I'll go through all of them and I'll try changing titles and thumbnails multiple times. And it's so evident which ones get the click through, the watch time, the subscribers. It's like doing a shocked face is good for business.
Yeah.
Just because people click on it 3 times as much and they'll watch more of the video than like a smiley face. And sometimes I know like I dread making the positive videos of me smiling.
Right.
Because it's just
Everything is good. Nothing
so it's
to
like
see
human
here.
nature. It's like, what are you going to click on? What are you going to do?
That's what sucks about just marketing in general.
Yeah.
In the real estate world where you have to say something polarizing. So like I have a course and it's primarily focused on flipping and the marketing team wanted me to be like, rental's dead and it sucks
Don't
and it's
invest in
terrible.
rentals.
Don't invest in
Right.
rental properties. I'm like, I love rental properties. I have a ton of rental
Yes.
properties.
Yeah.
They're like, well, that won't sell. Nobody will click on that if
Yeah,
you don't
nuance
talk
doesn't
about
sell.
Yeah.
Right.
See, as a
It
kid,
does
it used to
not.
just be women in bikinis.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
simple. It's like, that's-
Lamborghinis too.
The
yeah.
Lamborghinis,
Yes.
women in
Have you
bikinis,
tried
and like
putting women in bikinis on your thumbnails?
Just-
not yet.
Try that next video. Here's
that
why.
would be a killer video if you just say like how to get wealthy
Yeah.
and your face would just right next to the face, like how to be a millionaire in 2025.
Yeah.
Just that. I bet that would do well. I think we're gonna go
I think we
full
should
circle on that. Yeah, with flames.
Nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, we
Those
got to
are the
start
days.
moving toward the end of the show. We've been going a little while. I want to shift over
we're
to a
having a
new
great time.
session. We call this the 3-2-1 pivot. The idea of a pivot meaning your life is going one direction and something just knocks it off course in a more positive way. So I want to talk about 3 books that have changed the direction of your life. So a pivot book. We'll start with that.
For me, the recent one that I actually read about a month ago, Be Useful, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Really?
He's always been a hero of mine growing up. He's had this really interesting childhood that I resonate with. And he talks about this interesting moment in his life when he came to Venice Beach. And there was this stereotype of like the muscle men, and all the media would report on them as like these weirdos. And they would be like, "Oh, these men are just oogling at other men in their muscles. They must be gay." They just didn't understand it. And Arnold's like, "How come you guys don't talk to the media and kind of invite them into our world and show them how hard we work and how it affects health and all these other things?" And they're like, "Because it's not going to change anything. They're still going to write their stories." And he's like, "Well, if you let them in, maybe it'll change." So he single-handedly changed the face of the bodybuilding industry early on and shaped its image. And what's interesting is I think Graham and I, for the longest time, we've been super like anti-confrontational. We've never like addressed things when people make videos about us. I think after I read that book and seeing like how Arnold did it and confronting people that sort of take things out of context has helped my mental health. I don't think it's necessarily helped people make different videos on creators, but the ability to speak on it and speaking to the creators that like sometimes we'll get a text and like, "Hey, I'm about to make a video on you. Can you comment on this thing?" And it's like, oh God, here we go. There's nothing I can say. It's better not to say anything, but it just eats at you mentally over the years. And now I've just taken the approach of actually speaking to some of those people and just getting my thoughts out so they understand that I'm a person with good intentions and I try my best and there's things that I'm going to miss, but I'm a human being. And again, I don't think it affects the outcome of their video. They're still going to do what they're doing, but mentally it's helped me cope with just the reality of being a person who makes videos that people are going to make videos about. And that's kind of what helped me recently.
What about a book for you?
Yeah, I read one recently. I think it's called Wanting.
Okay.
And it's about the science of figuring out why you want certain things. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
It goes into like human nature of if you see other people have something, it makes you want those same things too. And decoupling your actual want with that of something that you actually want versus you want something because other people have.
Yeah, fascinating.
So it's like we take on a lot of behaviors from people around us.
Yeah.
And that really affects you more than you think.
All right, that's 2 books. So one more from one of you. A book that changed your life a little bit.
Gosh.
Think
the
and Grow
last one?
Rich. I mean, that was a classic.
great
But
answer,
I read that when I was a kid. That changed everything for me. Of just like being able to think something and will it into existence because you believe in it.
Yeah. Very cool.
Well, we just actually did an audiobook with Corey on the way to LA. What was it? It was Sapiens, actually.
Okay,
Ooh,
I've
yeah.
not read it.
It's really interesting about human psychology and how language evolved and how our language was able to surpass different languages in the animal kingdom because we developed this habit of gossiping and talking about other people. And so that's what evolved into nuances, which led to tool making and all these other things. And it's a really fascinating.
Gossiping. You see that wheel over there? Yeah.
Well, it kind of plays into the theory of like want and need and all these other things. It's all interconnected. And
Bailey's very much like that. The dog is a good example of like she'll see a toy, have no interest in it.
Oh, yeah.
And so all of a sudden you take it, start playing with it, and it's like, I want
need that,
that.
Yeah. Or like how they compare base level happiness. It's like if you feed your dog kibbles, all the time, and then you give them a treat of chicken, they'll go crazy for it. But if you make their meal just chicken every day, they don't care about it the next time you give it to them. So it's like, I don't know. It seems like base level happiness is something really important to pay attention to.
I worried about that actually moving to Hawaii. Is like baseline like environment here. Like there's nowhere else really in the world I can go to be like, this is way better.
Right.
Because I'm in Maui. But like now we vacation to like the mountains. And now I'm like, oh, this is way better. Like I love going to Colorado.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's why Tokyo sounds really interesting now. Because like, yeah, you get baseline. You definitely get adjust. Like when you're living here, you just like, this is life.
Do you
it's
guys,
not cool anymore.
Do you guys know that like, I know you know a lot of wealthy people, but you guys notice that a lot of them are less happy or more happy generally?
Ooh, I would say the real estate investors that are wealthy seem happier. And I think it's because they just continually get to climb. Like there's no peak, there's no top.
Okay.
When I think of people who made a ton of money, they sold their company and now they're just rich. Those people are almost always miserable.
Right.
Because they have no, like, they're not striving anymore. I think happiness comes from striving.
I think the real estate investors I know that are rich are the happiest rich people that I know.
I agree.
Okay.
Versus
why are they so happy though? Is it just because their cash flow goes up every month?
I don't
Or like,
know.
what if the market drops? Because maybe the market's been going up continuously since
for a
2010.
decade,
So it's like those people
I think
only made money like if the market drops.
because they have
continual
purpose.
improvement, passion.
Yeah,
Like you get to continue to grow your business every single day. You don't cap out. Like it sounds like your buddy with the business cards.
Yeah.
Like he's reached this cap where he's like, we're cyclical every Christmas, Father's Day, Mother's Day. We're going to do this. And it's become boring to him. Where in real estate, it never gets boring because you can start investing in assisted living.
But isn't there like diminishing returns? Like let's just say you're making $100,000 a month. What's another $5,000 on top of that?
But
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
think
for a
it's
lot of it's not about the money; it's about the growth. Where, I mean, I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but there's no change like on the happiness index between 10 and 50 million, and there's no change on the happiness index between 50 million and 300 million, and then 300 to a billion, and at some point it actually starts going down. What was it? The sweet spot is like I think 5 or 6 million.
I've heard different things.
Ty Lopez told me that the sweet spot for wealth is 5 to 20 million because it's enough to do like 95% of things and still want things in the future and look forward to something, but you can't do everything. And you're small enough where you don't become a target. And the best income is 1 to 2 million a year because you're low on the scale of being a target or standing out too much, but you could still do 99% of stuff out there.
Yeah, that's a great, because I feel like that's similar to where we're at, and there's still so much more that I want to do, and I still don't feel wealthy at all where we're at. Well, I feel very wealthy and blessed and fortunate and can do anything, but I also feel like I look at guys like Brandon where I'm like, oh, I want to continue to grow and to develop, and so.
It's also possible real estate is a game. Like it really is a game. Like we're all just playing one giant game of Monopoly, and so it feels like we're playing a game when we're playing real estate. I don't know, like because I'm not in Bitcoin or any of that stuff, but I wonder like do people maybe day traders think of it as a game? And maybe day traders are happy in the same way. I don't know, but real estate very much feels like Monopoly. When I get up to play real estate, I'm playing real estate.
That makes sense.
So,
but I don't know a lot of like billionaire real estate investors. I know one.
Yeah. I know one.
Yeah.
Maybe two that I know personally.
So all the people that I know that are wealthy is that $5 to $20 million range, and they all seem very happy.
Is Dave Ramsey happy?
He seems happy.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be miserable, but like, he seems extremely happy.
Yeah.
It seems like he has a lot of purpose, and it seems like he takes care of his team like they're his kids.
Yeah, that's true.
You can learn a lot from Dave, like the way he runs his company. It's like, I disagree with him generally on like debt with real estate, but I understand where he's coming from.
He is doing more collabs at this point, so it would be worth reaching out and seeing you can do something with Dave.
Yeah, I should do that. Back in the day, we tried to get him
George
on
Camel would probably do it.
George Camel,
George Camel would do it.
Dave ripped apart the Burr method.
Did he?
Yeah. He ripped it apart about leveraging.
Sometimes I feel like people become caricatures of just like
Yeah.
Like we said, nuance doesn't sell.
Yeah.
I never take people seriously, like no matter what they say. I'm like, I don't know if you really believe what you're saying, or if you're just saying it because you know it's what.
No, he's got a
it's
method
what works.
that works.
Yeah.
I
It
know,
works.
but
It's so safe.
at a certain point, you're just like,
No, but I get it though.
Let me
Like,
give you a
with
Bitcoin.
Dave's-
Like, no.
The issue with
Like,
Dave
okay.
is that, well, not the issue, but the thing with Dave is that like no one could get in trouble following his method.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
true.
safe. And when you're talking to such a big group, like I've learned that.
Yeah.
Like I could be as nuanced as possible about something I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, there's a certain percentage of people out there where if they don't listen or they don't care, I mean, yeah, you
Yeah.
could get in over your head. But with
Right.
Dave, it's like, hey, if you stick with these core principles,
Yep.
you'll limit the downside,
Yeah.
you'll limit the upside. But
Yeah.
like, hey, it's a very safe way.
Yeah, I've always said that he teaches people how to not lose.
Right,
Like
right.
his whole thing is how not to lose.
Right.
He did the entree leadership for a while. I mean, he's still pushing that. So like that's more of how to win.
Right.
But that's such a small piece.
I
Mainly
love
it's-
that channel.
But yeah. They do it,
I've been
is
listening
kind
to
of
a
even-
lot
but
of
it's
that.
not
Yeah.
as popular as
No.
nowhere near it because it doesn't apply to 99%
You should
people.
listen. Do you know the
No.
It's a new channel of his. Well, I guess it's not new, but he started
Yeah.
posting on there a lot more about like wealthier people or
Okay.
businesses.
Yeah, I think he enjoys
Really
that more.
interesting.
He's
Yeah.
got to be tired of
I
talking
Yeah.
about this stuff.
love
baby
it.
steps.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So, like-
90% of the United States needs to follow his
Yeah, they need to-
yeah,
exactly.
versus
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
leverage
Yeah.
debt.
I love
So-
the Fat Fire community on Reddit. That's my favorite.
It's getting oversaturated now.
Is it?
Yeah, a new one is Long Angle.
Long
It's
Angle.
a verified fat fire.
Oh, okay.
What is it? I know what fire is. What's fat fire?
I want to say it's
5 million or more.
yeah.
is
Oh,
what's
okay.
considered fat.
right, or passively make 100K a year supposedly. I know there's different
Yeah.
metrics, but yeah.
So not the fire movement of like, hey, I live in a cubicle that's
Right.
12
Right.
square
Yes.
feet.
Yeah,
and-
you're living large.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay.
fire community is usually about $1.5 to $3 million, and that's what people aim for
Yeah.
to retire on that. But Fat Fire is like 5 million or more. But it's become really popular lately, and it seems like the post quality and the advice on there has gone downhill.
Gotcha.
It's still interesting. I read it every single day. It's
We,
my go-to.
we met a couple interesting people from there, though.
Yeah,
That's
I've,
cool.
I've actually met like good friends now from the Fat Fire community, and it's
Awesome.
so odd because every now and then someone will post like, "Hey, we should do a meetup," and everyone is like, "No, I come on here to be anonymous." But the people I've met from the community are so cool and so nice, and I hang out with them on a regular basis, and they're just like, "Yeah, no, we meet up with people."
Yeah.
I love it.
met one at your wedding.
Yeah, two of them were at my wedding.
Oh yeah, that too.
Two of them.
Reddit.
From
awesome.
Reddit, from Reddit, and it's just like people who like have posts that I really like. I'll reach out to them and be like, "Hey, if we're in town or whatever, let's meet up." And everyone is like, "Yeah, I would love to. Let me know." And it's such a great.
Are you
group.
anonymous on Reddit, or do people know who you are on Reddit?
People know who I am.
Yeah.
So
But
you don't keep it anonymous.
I mean, it started off as anonymous, but I've commented enough where
Yeah.
people know.
Yeah.
I would love to make another account,
Yeah.
but I just keep the same.
Yeah.
I rarely comment anymore,
Love it.
but I'll DM privately and I'll just
Give me your net worth update.
yeah.
So, Fat Fire community. Well, let's move on to the next question. So, two pivot people. Who are two people that you've met? It can be your parents, it can be friends, mentors that have changed your life.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
The first was my first boss, Chris, when I was working at the aquarium place.
Yeah.
Gave me a chance on that. Gave me a lot of self-confidence of like dealing with customers and business. And then Jason Oppenheim was being able to see him work. It was he's very direct. And I don't want to say aggressive when it comes to like certain styles, but like he has no problem saying no to clients. And that was something I'd never heard of before. It's like, previously it's like the customer's always right, the clients, you got it like a piece of their demands. But Jason was very much like, no, you want that? I can't give that to you. I don't want to waste my time on that. So I've never heard that before, but he did like more business doing that. And people really appreciated that brutal honesty.
Yeah.
And that's why he did so well.
That's cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, the guy I used to work for the Magic Company, actually.
yeah.
He's a whiz kid, started when he was like 19 years old, built a 7-figure business. And the thing I learned from him is to never take no for an answer, knock down doors until you say yes, and no matter how big a project is, always say yes. I mean, this guy, like companies would approach us and be like, hey, can you guys put on a live show for us for this hotel? It's this launch of this thing. And he's like, yeah, we'll do. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not what we do. He's like, no, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see.
That's
Just
awesome.
never taking no for an answer.
Love
One
it.
more person.
One more person, probably my parents. Yeah, just as far as what to do and also what not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you close with them today? Are they still?
yeah. They live like 2 minutes away from
Oh,
me.
that's
I
great.
always visit
Awesome.
them.
Love that.
All right.
Yeah.
Next question: a pivot quote. So a quote that's
No, I don't.
maybe that you live by, that you love, that's changed your life a little bit.
Yeah. Pivot
Any quotes
quote.
that you love.
Oh man,
I don't have any pivot quotes. I don't live by quotes.
I don't really live by quotes either. But one that I saw that kind of stood out to me recently was There's gonna be a lot of people waiting for you with bated breath, holding their breath, waiting for you to fail. Let them suffocate.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of a negative one,
Yeah,
but that
I
one
don't
stood out to me.
Yeah, I don't have any quotes.
You're not a quote
I don't
guy?
know. Just buy and hold.
Buy and
Buy and hold.
Buy and hold.
Buy
Yeah.
the dip.
Yeah. Buy the dip. That's funny.
Buy high, sell low.
That's a great way to live. So, all right, we're going to move to the next segment, past, present, future. And you guys are both still very young, but let's go back to 15 to 20-year-old you. And what advice would you give them going into that next stage of their life, of their 20s?
Oh, man. I guess for me, it would be don't be so hard on yourself. Because I remember starting YouTube when I was like 29 or 30. And I felt it was so hard for me to pivot my entire life because up until like 28, I had this identity of who I was and the people that followed me and the people that I worked with, I really looked up to. And it was weird because I'm like, how do I go from entertainment and magic and cardistry to this other personality that I've always had that no one's ever seen, and this passion? And it's like a part of me had to die and that ego had to go away in order to allow myself to do this other thing, which was so hard mentally. It's like, all these people are just going to think I'm going to fail. If I fail, it's going to be embarrassing. And I remember launching my first video and telling myself, if I see a comment, if I had seen a comment that was like, you're a magician, like, why would I ever watch your videos on finance? I would have probably quit on the spot. And I think for me, it would have just to tell myself to go back and just be like, hey, don't be so hard on yourself. No one cares what you do.
Yeah.
Just allow yourself to fail and just do something.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. What about you,
Yeah,
Dan?
I don't know. I would have probably said yes to more things. And I think for me, it was very easy to say no, or it's easier to stay home. Like there's so many events that I was invited to that I didn't go to because I didn't know anyone there.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to show up and be awkward.
Yeah.
And so I'd just be like, no, let's stay home. But I wish I went.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a big deal.
Love that.
All right, let's talk about the present. What's something in your life right now over the last, let's call it 6 to 12 months that you that's new, that's maybe a habit or an action or a routine, something that's changed your life for the better? Anything you're working on or improving with?
Gosh, I guess just going to the gym more and trying to have a gym buddy. And that's why I always like, Graham, let's
we've
go to
been
the
hitting
gym.
the gym a lot more often. Yeah.
Awesome.
We go to these like heated classes that are 95 degrees and it's an
Like
hour
hot-
straight.
It's not like hot yoga though.
It's kind of like hot yoga, but it's way
Dude,
more
imagine,
intense.
Imagine like a CrossFit, but it's 95 degrees with like 80%
Yeah.
humidity.
Jeez.
Just taking care of
Yeah.
our health. As we get older, I guess.
Yeah.
How old are each of you, by the way?
34.
34?
35.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I think traveling more. I think that's what we've been doing a lot
that's
more.
been the biggest change.
Yeah, traveling so much
Yeah.
more. Like being here with you, there was this completely spontaneous trip. You're like, hey, we're going to go to Maui. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll come.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was like a 2 days before or something. You said you would come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And normally I'd be posting a video and it would be the end of the world if I missed an upload.
Yes,
Now
sir.
I'm just like, whatever.
Do you have videos in the pipeline, or have you just gotten to a point
Nope.
in your life where it's like, it doesn't matter. The
fine.
world's going to keep moving?
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
for when I was at Bigger Pockets, 9 years of the podcast or 10 years of the podcast, I never missed, we never missed a Thursday morning release. And and I was never not on it. It was like a big thing. I always had to be on every episode until 8 years in. There was some freak thing that happened where I couldn't be on the episode. And so I wasn't. And nothing happened. I just went back on next week, and nobody said a word. Show didn't die. Like it was just shocked me. Like, oh, the world doesn't revolve around me being on this every week.
Yeah,
Like, it's okay to not
it's such
be
a
so-
freeing feeling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that doesn't actually matter.
Awesome. All right. I'm excited about this question for you guys because you guys obviously have massive influence, millions of subscribers, have hundreds of millions, if not billions of views. I don't know how many views you've had, but
I wish.
hundreds of millions?
Maybe.
Yeah, hundreds of millions. And so, like, you guys have massive influence, and someday you guys are going to get old and you're going to die. And like, what do you want your mark on the world to be? What do you want your legacy to be when that happens? What do you want people to say about you?
I just think that anyone could do it. You know, my big thing is that if you want something, you could achieve it, no matter what it is or how far it seems. That I think anything is possible.
Yeah.
I believe you create your own reality. That's what I really believe. So if there's something you want, you can get it. And you think about it too, like if you want something, it's just like there's a path to get there. You just got to find that path. Like if certain things happen and you create that, you can practically get whatever you want.
Yeah.
Man,
Love
that's such a like heavy question.
It
I
is,
feel
it's
like
deep, yeah.
a lot of my friends, like I asked the same question. They're like, I want to leave a legacy about, like building schools and like helping people. And I think there is a part of me that wants that, but a part of me maybe is avoiding that. I'm just like, I just want to live my life and do the things I love and help people leave this world a better place than I found it. And I don't particularly have like a legacy that I want to be remembered by. Just innovate, try different things and fail, and it's okay. I don't know. Maybe someday later in my life I'll find some kind of legacy that I'm like, this is what it is. But for now, I'm kind of still searching for that thing. Yeah. What about you guys?
I think it's a heavy question. And for me, I'm not, I mean, I obviously would love to give as much money away to charity as possible and to have people say great things about me when I die. But for me, I've got 3 kids. Yeah. And the most important thing that I can do is like, if I die and my 3 kids say my dad was a great dad, I'm happy.
I love that. I think I would be too. I want kids too soon, hopefully. So that would be mine as well.
Yeah, love it. I mean, same. Like, I want to give away $1 billion. Like that's a legit what I'm trying to do in life. Like I figure that's a good North Star that I probably won't get.
I'll take it.
I want to give it away to Bitcoin.
Oh no, I'm a charity.
Like that literally is like the whole like Better Life Tribe that I started, right? So the whole thing is all for charity. So my theory is if I can get 10,000 people paying an average of $500 a month to be part of this real estate community, that ends up being $50 million a year roughly in profit. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, 10, 15, 20 years of that, that's $1 billion. Like, and that's without compounding stuff and without like additional. So
does giving money to the government count?
They're kind of a charity. Yeah. They're kind of a charity. Yeah. It's been a $1 billion.
That's incredible.
We're going to aim for that. We'll see.
Yeah. They could print that in like
I know,
a minute.
I can just go to my buddy Elon and ask him, but nope, can't do it. All right. Let's wrap things up.
Cool.
What are you each excited about coming up in your life? What's personal, professional, whatever? What are you
traveling to Japan?
Yeah. The one thing is just, we're going back.
Oh, no way.
So was that good?
It was so good. I never thought it would be. I was never excited about particularly going to Japan. It was never on my bucket list. And then Graham invited me and we went. And it was the best time.
Did you recognize in Japan at all?
Once or twice,
I think,
something like that. But they're Americans that were traveling. There's no Japanese people that watch our channel.
Yeah,
but
just the onsens, like the bathhouses, everything, the food, the people,
everything about it was perfect. I didn't think a perfect place existed, but it is Japan.
And is it Tokyo specifically or outside?
No, Kyoto was amazing.
Okay.
And we went during a time where it was kind of cold.
Yeah,
so I could only imagine what it's like when it's nice.
It's awesome.
Like the weather is perfect.
Awesome. And then last but not least, where can people find you at? Like your
just YouTube. My name, Andrei Jikh. Jikh. Kind of hard to spell, but find me.
Graham Stephan.
Graham Stephan.
Yeah. You know who I am.
You guys know.
That's a dumb question. Usually it's not that 5 million subscribers on YouTube.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for coming on the show. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
We're doing a 4-way fist bump to end this. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Boom. Got it.